even with the court with the traffic tickets, you know, the same thing applies with everything that we're talking about. The Money Net Daily Log Transaction Report, Federal Reserve 2046, Federal Reserve 2049, Federal Reserve 2099, Call Report. The Schedules RC Balance Sheet, line 13, which is your asset because they operated as your agent on behalf of your vessel and issued a promissory note that you're unaware of, or a negotiable instrument. They got an advance from the Treasury, known as the complaint security, all right? Which is their RCE deposit liability due and owing to you. What they're trying to figure out is whether or not you're going to claim your property, your general intangible property that they're in constructive possession of, which is the debits that need to be debited to your account or the collateral deposit account for offset or set off purposes, because they're administering a bankruptcy. It's taxation without representation. They create, in the legislature, they create these statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations that are attached to penal sums and penal bonds. You guys aren't fucking criminals. They know you're not criminals. But they like to rape, plunder, steal, loot, and pillage, which is called privateering and counterfeiting United States securities.
Can I ask you something real quick? When they had took me in that night, man, and they said they was holding me for 24 hours, and they ended up letting me go in a couple hours. I didn't know if it was because of the DBA or what, but I wanted to ask you, the 300 that they tried to charge me to bond myself out, is that the voucher that they?
That's a violation. Listen, that's a violation of the Eighth Amendment. That's cruel and unusual punishment, excessive bail and bond. It shall not be had. Okay? Innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around, which tells me that they're running game on you under Maritime Admiralty law, under the special rules and procedures of Maritime Admiralty that were initiated and enacted in 1966, the Special Supplemental Rules for Maritime Admiralty. They're running game on you.
Appreciate that. I sure just wrote that down. Look that up.
Hey, Derek, so I got a court case coming up, and the funny thing about it, they emailed me, and it says judge collection.
The third-party debt collectors, yep.
Yeah. And everything you're talking about, it actually correlates with what's really going on.
So they're nothing more than third-party debt collectors running a special Star Chambers venue outside of the judiciary, attempting to collect a debt for a loan that they purport that you received, that they're in constructive possession of, which is a misappropriation of funds, theft by way of false promise, breach of trust, breach of fiduciary duty, and commercial dishonor. And everybody wants to go in and argue, and the second you argue, you go into dishonor. It gives them the ability to sell your portfolio to third-party investors, which is exactly how they bolster their retirement, because they really are the investors, or they're affiliated with the investors. And then they launder everything through the Federal Reserve of Texas, through the United States District Courts, and gets sent back up to the District Court of Illinois. And that's how they're doing the distribution of funds through the 501c3 organizations that they have created. But you don't need to know all that stuff. Sure, it's interesting and it's nice to have that information, but sometimes being armed with all that information is really detrimental to you. It doesn't help you because you start spouting it off and they're like, oh yeah, can you prove it? He who makes a claim has to prove it. So now you're proving that they're an international organization, crime syndicate, engaged in counterfeiting and privateering on our land, which is piracy on the land, right? And you got to prove all that stuff when you could just keep it really simple. You're in constructive possession of decedent estate property. I'm the grantor beneficiary. You're the trustee. So you're going to render, settle, and close this account and give me the remainderment, right? There are no facts in dispute, waive all benefits without God. I'm just here to collect a check. I don't know who the fuck you people are, and I really don't care. It's of no consequence to me. If you don't actually have an aggrieved party stating that I've caused them harm, damage, loss, and or hardship, the only thing this is a banking transaction. I don't give a shit about anything else.
AD, I was arrested this past Tuesday for traveling.
One of the reasons people are being arrested for traveling is because their automobile isn't properly classified. Reclassify your automobile. Right now it's classified as a motor vehicle. Reclassify it. Repurpose it. Get a hold of the DMV and tell them that they're maintaining a record in there that's causing you harm, damage, and loss. And if they don't correct the record to reflect that your private household goods aren't used for commercial purposes, and you continue to be accosted by gun-toting morons with an IQ of 7, that the DMV and the head of the DMV assumes a liability under joint tortfeasors. They carry the primary active degree at fault for failing to correct a record that's causing you harm, damage, and loss. Make it simple. Correct the record. The records are what they're using against you guys that are being kept in air, and everybody wants to go argue in the court, but all they're seeing is the record that the DMV provides in the David system saying that you have a motor vehicle, which by presumption and assumption for them, they're presuming and assuming you to be engaged in commerce. Mitigate your risk of having encounters with these people by correcting the damn record, and you won't have these problems anymore. When you do have these problems, you'll be waiting for a fat daddy check in the mail for the dereliction of duty and maintaining a record in air that's caused you harm, damage, loss, and a hardship and an injury in fact. And again, since you were pulled over, what's the first thing they have to prove? That you were engaged in commerce.
I inserted my rights on his body cam. I recorded myself. I would like to go to federal court here in New York, the Southern District Federal Court, for due process violations.
You want it?
Then you need to have the case moved under Title 28, what is it, 1441, 1331, the constitutional challenge in question. But again, the simple fact of the matter is, until you correct the record that's maintained with the DMV, they're always gonna engage you. Correct the record. They're maintaining a record in there that's causing you harm, damage, and loss. They didn't disclose to you that they were going to sell your private intellectual property to 3,100 plus counties throughout the United States and all law enforcement divisions for profit and gain for their benefit to your detriment. They sold your private intellectual property and didn't cut you in on it and made you the one liable for everything. That's egregious.
They're kind of like a RICO Act.
Well, yeah, except for the fact that you're a willful participant in it, and you're not doing your duty to have them correct the record.
So when you register the vehicle, that's where you get in the trap.
Right, they do it for you. See, if you go to an automobile dealership, let me ask you this. Has anybody ever seen a motor vehicle dealership? Because in all my years, I ain't never seen a motor vehicle dealership. Ever. Not one.
Yeah, I got to use
automobile dealerships. Well, how the heck did
by the weight
a motor vehicle? Well, when you read the security agreement and stuff, it goes from being an automobile and you being a buyer, a purchaser, to you being a borrower, then being a lender, then to you being a debtor and you having a motor vehicle and permission to use the motor vehicle because they bequeath the MSO and MCO to the state.
So at that point, you need your own tag if you take your vehicle out of the system.
No, they'll send you an exempt plate. They'll send you an exempt tag.
Oh, cool. Because I just, we're down in the South. We used to do do not hire.
Every state has exempt plates and tags, so you can blend in. They don't want you sticking out like a sore thumb. Every DMV.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting. Am I heard?
Yeah. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I've been following you a lot. And what you just said hit real. I've been talking to people about the same thing you're discussing, right? When you go to that dealership, they already got the MSO and MCO at the state. So if you go make a purchase agreement, I suggest you going straight to the manufacturer. Because now it's an agreement between you and the manufacturer. And the state is not invited in. So when you do that purchase agreement, you go ahead, report the transaction and everything to show that through the appropriate forms or whatever. But, and another thing that you touched on, when you go there to the dealer, you come in, they say, we got to check your credit. You can't be denied credit. So therefore, you're the one who's making the money for it to exist. Then they say, oh, well, we got to find a financer. Now, they create an entity to so-called finance you. And the next thing you know, now you're filling out a loan agreement. Now, the loan agreement is to pay back the so-called financer, but it was originally your credit from the start. So now you in a binding agreement. They take the original application to the Treasury window. The other one, the promissory note from the loan agreement, goes to the Federal Reserve. And they both multiply. So look how much money they make.
And here's the thing: if you go to a dealership, all you got to tell them is that you're going to register it in another state, and they have to give you the MSO or MCO. So they do have it on deck.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can do that. That's possible because once conveyance happens, when you put it into your trust or whatever it is, then you assume title over that for your trustee in order for you to operate and utilize the proceeds or whatever that comes from it. That's going to the trust for the beneficiaries. But that's depending on the position you want to play.
But again, if y'all are cognizant of what Carl Hillicott is so eloquently put together for all of us, and he's a blessing. I mean, I'm telling you right now, right away there's no such thing as a loan in the several states to Americans, period.
Right.
So all they're doing, if you look up the word dealer in Black's Law Dictionary, or you look up the word dealer in the UCC, it will tell you that they buy, sell, trade, and transfer negotiable instruments, securities, all right? So they're not dealing automobiles. They're dealing your paper. The automobile is a consolation prize for showing up for the true intent of the transaction, and the true nature of the transaction is to get some paperwork from you. It's all paper for paper. And
Yeah, that's usually the collateral.
that is the collateral.
Right, they take the car
Congress,
or the house.
the 73rd Congress, First Session, Volume 77, Part 1, clearly articulates that collateral is the credit application with the tender and a receipt, a warehouse receipt. That's a collateral security obligation of the United States, period.
Right, they took your bill late.
The secondary transaction is where they're getting you to pledge your asset, which is the car, the house, the boat, the plane, the train, for a secondary conduit loan, which is what Congress says these banking affiliates can do so long as the Americans willfully pledge their asset for that type of a loan, which is exactly what we've been doing due to our lack of knowledge. The second they say, congratulations, you're approved, it belongs to you, whatever you were getting.
Right.
Thank you, Derek. I'm gonna come down so somebody else can get a chance to come up, man. I thank you, man. Gratitude.
Yeah, you bet. And again, I don't have all the answers, ladies and gentlemen. I've just been around the block a few times.
No, you do a good job. I've been following you a long time, whether it's YouTube or, when I see you on TikTok. And everything that you're saying and you're doing, you've been on point about it, but people can't see that because they don't understand that aspect of it. They don't understand the controlling of what's going on. You have to balance out the books of the assets and liability because you're already telling them you don't want them to do it for you. So that's how it has to go. People not looking at the necessary words like restraint, restrict, deliberate. All these words have meanings based on the enunciation on how they're spoken.
Well, there's a difference between words defined by definition and terms. See, when you go through the UCC or the USC or the Code of Federal Regulations, they'll say definitions. And then they'll say the term buyer means, the term dealer means. And so those are offers to contract. If you're going to use their terminology, their words that they define in their terms and conditions, now you're bound by contract from the new terms.
Right. You're obligated to perform now under the agreement that you made.
In a certain manner until you understand that they're not able to do business internally, domestically, only internationally.
Right, because you're the only one who signed the contract first anyway. You see, they can't go behind doors and then attach their signature to something and have a notary sign it as if it's valid. But the only signature they're adapting or putting on there is paid to the order of on the back of the document.
Yep, through blank endorsement.
Because you gave up the right. Right, there you go. You gave up the right to them by granting them the authority to operate under power of attorney to endorse on your behalf.
Right. And they can take your signature and transpose it onto other documents and things of that nature. Correct. So you can remove power of attorney.
Right.
They're abusing their authority.
Right, because they say you give us the power to sell, transfer, or what's the other word? Not appoint, but assign.
Right.
You see,
they failed to disclose the nature and cause of the transaction in the first place. And that's a denial of due process of law, which vitiates everything.
Right. So that goes back to the fruit of the poisonous
tree. You can use the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. You sure could.
tree.
But it's so much more.
If it was deceptive practices from the beginning, like inequity.
It's so much more simple to just use what Congress said. That these banks can only do business internationally,
Right.
not domestically. They can't deal with Americans and they can't deal with the Union of States or the several states, period.
What's the code on that?
That is Public Law 89, 485. Public Law 89.
Somebody interrupted you. Get it to me again, please.
Yeah, Public Law 89, hyphen 485, July 1st, 1966.
Okay. The other day I went into, I buy dozers and equipment, and we got a record service. I've had MSOs. I've done all this. I've got probably $10 million in transactions done good on the public side coming on to all this in the last 3 or 4 months. I asked him for a copy of the contract on the dozer. I was going to pay it off and the account number. He gave me the account number, but he wouldn't give me the contract, so I'm going to go back and ask him for it. Really can't produce the original one.
Tell them to use a collateral deposit account for offset or set-off purposes to render, settle, and close the account.
Say that slowly, I'll write it down.
Collateral deposit account. You want them to use a collateral deposit account for offset or set-off purposes to render, settle, and close the account. Real simple stuff.
Can I report the taxes on it and zero out the account to the Treasury?
Well, that's always the main issue, is the fact of the taxes. That's always the issue at hand. But here's the thing. You gave them actual cash value with the over-the-counter security. They're the ones with the tax liability, not you.
Right.
The money they make off your money is still your money, and it's tax exempt.
So when I throw the hot potato to the Treasury, then they report it, then I turn into tax exempt, basically.
You've always been tax exempt. That's the problem. People don't realize who you are.
But when I'm holding the instrument, then I'm liable to taxation, am I not?
What instrument are you holding that you believe you bear the tax?
Well, the fraud and the loan.
No. They're the ones that risk all the liability because they're the ones getting the dividends, derivatives, and debentures and from the securitization of the note, which they never told you that they were going to do. They never told you the nature and cause of the transaction.
Okay, they get 10 times the leverage on the signature, the blue ink wet signature.
Well, there's a number of things they can do. Through Federal Reserve, fractional reserve lending. They can securitize it. They can bundle it up like a chocolate-covered turd with a bunch of other securities and put it in the stock exchange, where it'll float around for the next 35 years, reaping the reward of rents, profits, proceeds, futures, and annuities, dividends, and derivatives. Or they take it and they put it on the Forex, which is part of the world's foreign currency exchange market, which
Yeah, I
is
trade the forex.
But
Yeah.
all of that, again, is prohibited.
Okay.
All prohibited. They're not allowed to do that with Americans domestically, internally, period. It says national banking associations are not permitted to accept a deposit in the United States. However, hold on. It says national banking associations are not permitted to accept a deposit in the United States. However, that was 1913, and the act was amended in 1919 with the enactment of the EDGE Act Corporation. So can Bank of America, Chase, Citibank, Citibank, EDGE Act corporations accept a deposit? The answer is no. Here, Title 12, CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, subsection 211.6, permissible activities of EDGE Act and agreement corporations in the United States. A, activities incidental to international or foreign business. An EDGE Act or agreement corporation may engage directly or indirectly in activities in the United States that are permitted by Section 25A6 of the Federal Reserve Act, Title 12, USC, subsection 615, and are incidental to international and foreign business, and in such other activities as the board determines are incidental to international or foreign business. The following activities will ordinarily be considered incidental to an EDGE Act or agreement corporation, international of foreign business. 1. Deposits from foreign government and foreign persons. An EDGE Act or agreement corporation may receive in the United States transaction accounts, saving accounts, and time deposits, including issuing negotiable certificates of deposit from foreign governments and their agencies and instrumentalities, and from foreign persons. Are you a foreign person? No. Did you get the loan? Did they take you on holiday to Jamaica when you signed your documents? No. Okay, you were domestic, internally, part of the Union of States, in the several states, as an American, and they're not allowed to have a deposit account for you. They're not allowed to have a transaction account for you. They're not allowed to have a savings account for you. All right? It's real cut and fucking dry. Public Law 89-485, July 1st, 1966, Section 3, subsection C of Section 2 of the Bank Holding Company Act of 1956, 12 U.S.C. 1811C, is amended to read as follows. Bank means any institution that accepts deposits that the depositor has a legal right to withdraw on demand, but shall not include any organization operating under Section 25 of Section 25A of the Federal Reserve Act, or any organization that does not do business in the United States. Well, what about bank holding companies like Wells Fargo? The answer is the same. Fate here. Title 12, United States Code 1843, interest in non-banking organizations. Section 3, the term bank holding company shall include a bank which, 1, is organized solely to do business with the other banks and their officers, directors, or employees. 2, is owned primarily by the bank with which it does business. And 3, and does not do business with the general public. Well, what about foreign banking organizations like Dutchess Bank, HSBC, ETL? Answer, they suffer the same fate here. Title 12, United States Code, subsection 3102, establishment of federal branches and agencies by foreign bank. Operations of foreign bank and federal branch, operations of a foreign bank at a federal branch or agency shall be conducted with the same rights and privileges as a national bank at the same location, and shall be subject to all the same duties, restrictions, penalties, liabilities, conditions, and limitations that would apply under the National Banking Act. Receipts of deposit and exercising of fiduciary powers at federal agencies prohibited. Notwithstanding any of the provisions of this section, a foreign bank shall not receive deposits or exercise fiduciary powers at any federal agency. For those of you keeping track, you already know there is one more entity, that being these so-called mortgage service companies operating under the Bank Service Act of 1962, codified in Title 12, United States Code 1861 through 1867. So let's see if they might be permitted to accept a deposit here. Title 12, United States Code, subsection 1864, permissible bank service company activities for other persons. A, services permissible other than taking deposits. A bank service company may provide to any person, any service authorized by this section, except that a bank service company shall not take deposits. Is the bank trying to get you to submit deposits to them? Yes, they are. Are they permitted to do so? No, they're not. In summation, according to the numerous court rulings, any contract, in order for it to be enforceable, there has to be a remedy right. Since 1913, countless Americans have signed contracts drafted under the provisions of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, have lost their lifelong wealth, wind up in the streets and in soup kitchens, all while Congress has never provided a remedy to enforce the bogus contract. When one tries to do a mortgage foreclosure in Puerto Rico under Title 12, United States Code 632, and the district court denies it because Puerto Rico is not a dependency or insular possession of the United States for purposes of acts relating to national banks. U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, 690 F. Period 2D1, First Circuit, 1982, June 22nd, 1982, as modified on denial of rehearing July 26, 1982. The district court decision salient points 12 U.S.C. subsection 632 provides in relevant part as follows: notwithstanding any other provisions of law, all suits of a civil nature at common law or in equity to which any corporation organized under the laws of the United States shall be party arising out of transactions involving banking in the dependency or insular possessions of the United States shall be deemed to arise under the laws of the United States, and the district courts of the United States shall have original jurisdiction of all such suits. 1. Banking activities covered by Section 632 include mortgage agreements. Section 632 is not limited to the original two parties to a banking transaction. And 3. Section 632 jurisdiction also exists over a claim by one cosigner of a letter of guarantee against another cosigner contesting the validity of the letter, when the letter was relied upon by the bank in granting a loan. National City Bank versus Huge, 106 F Superior Court 1, 2, and 3, DPR 1952. Number 4, banking activities covered by Section 632, including mortgage agreements. See Section Title 12, United States Code, subsection 1464C, Federal Savings and Loan Associations, and foreclosures on Mortgage Chase Manhattan Bank in A versus Porpiconio Hotel Ra, 516 F period 2D 1047, 1048, First Circuit 1975. It's got a list of court cases here. I'm going to overlook those. Whether defendants' acts are viewed as one in tort or contract, plaintiffs' rights are alleged to have arisen out of the defendant's mortgage agreement and thus out of a transaction involving banking within the meaning of Section 632. Plaintiffs have alleged facts sufficient to invoke Section 632 jurisdiction. So again, Section 632 is to bring it into the federal courts under the preemption of the public law 89-485 of July 1st, 1966, because Americans can't pay, can't make deposits. All right, there was no remedy provided for us. 12 CFR, and in providing no remedy for us to make payment, in a way, they have provided a remedy for us. All right, and that's in Title 31 USC 1501. 12 CFR subsection 250.143, member bank purchase of stock of foreign operations subsidiaries. D, as part of the original Federal Reserve Act, national banks were, with the board's permission, given the power to establish foreign branches. 2, in 1916, Congress amended the Federal Reserve Act to permit national banks to invest in international or foreign banking corporations known as agreement corporations, because such corporations were required to enter into an agreement or understanding with the board to restrict their operations, subject to such limitations or restrictions as the board may prescribe. Such agreement corporations may principally engage in international or foreign banking or banking in a dependency or insular possession of the United States, either directly or through the agency, ownership, or control of local institutions in foreign countries, or in such dependencies or insular possessions of the United States. In 1919, the enactment of Section 25A of the Federal Reserve Act, the EDGE Act, permitted national banks to invest in federally chartered international or foreign banking corporations, so-called EDGE Act corporations, which may engage in the international or foreign banking or other international or foreign financial operations, or in banking or other financial operations in dependency or insular possessions of the United States, either directly or through the ownership or control of local institutions in foreign countries, or in such dependencies or insular possessions, EDGE Act corporations may only purchase and hold stock in certain foreign subsidiaries with the consent of the board. And in 1966, Congress amended Section 25 of the Federal Reserve Act to allow national banks to invest directly in the shares of a foreign bank. In the board's judgment, the above statutory scheme of the Federal Reserve Act evidences a clear congressional intent that member banks may only purchase and hold stock in subsidiary located outside of the United States through the prescribed statutory provisions of Section 25 and 25A of the Federal Reserve Act. It is through these statutorily prescribed forms of organization that member banks must conduct their operations outside the United States. Section 25, foreign branches. 6, accounts of foreign branches. Every national banking association operating foreign branches shall conduct the accounts of each foreign branch independently of the accounts of the other foreign branches established by it and of its home office, and shall, at the end of each physical period, transfer to its general ledger the profits or losses occurred at each branch as a separate item. Note to the reader, Mr. Martin was a chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. No contract signed in the several states is legally binding, i.e. worthless paper. Mr. Stevens, to follow up with what Mr. Griffin has had to say, technically, when the man sits down to discuss the details of his loan and the agent says, I have to call up the home office to find out whether or not they will let you have the money, he will call and then is going to have to turn around to this fellow and say, now, you're going to have to go to the home office to find out whether they told me yes or no. Otherwise, he has closed the loan right there with him if he says what the home office says. And as it now happens, the agent does say it is all arranged, and he goes out and draws checks. So the loan procurement office is closing the loan right there on the premises, isn't he, Mr. Martin? It has to actually go back to the home office to be closed. Mr. Stevens, well, he can't tell him that then on the premises, but he does, and the borrower relies on that. He goes out and transacts his business. The agent tells him, you go ahead and start drawing, the bank is going to give you credit. Mr. Brown, Mr. Chairman, I think we ought to clarify this point because Governor Robertson has said that, in effect, it can be instant cash, instant deposit. Could a legally enforceable obligation be consummated at the loan production office, paper signed, and all those things, so that the loan officer could pick up the telephone and call the main office, the money would be deposited and the checks would be furnished, and the borrower would be able to, in effect, use the cash as of that moment. Now, does your ruling limit the activity of loan production officers of this conduct of this couldn't be done? Mr. Martin, according to our ruling, this could not be done. In other words, they can't do it. They can't give you a loan. What they're doing is creating book entries and creating a collateral deposit account that's only evidenced by receipt only, and they don't actually have fungible cash on hand to lend. Therefore, there is no loan. Mr. Robinson, I thank you. Mr. Brown, as I understand it, the loan production office would not be able to enter into, or better, no one in the office would be able to enter into a transaction which would be a legally binding transaction. Is that correct? Otherwise, a loan could not be closed and the parties could not be committed. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Martin, I think. Mr. Brown, under your interpretation of the ruling, Mr. Martin, I think that is correct ruling, yes. So in other words, none of them are able to actually give you a loan.
So,
Question here: Did I studied the 66 books of Ecclesiastical or whatever, but I can't. My brother, I can loan him money and not charge him interest, but a foreigner, I can charge interest to. Is that where they got these ideas from? These bylaws? In the biblical
Private
side.
agreements are protected under Article 1, Section 10. The government can't impede the obligation of contract, and that's why they're not coming in and saving everybody who's dubiously getting entered into these contracts, because you do have free will. You are free, all right? Everybody running around going, oh, they think I'm a straw man. They don't think you're a straw man at all.
They don't. You're right.
So would this apply to like even companies that's like those merchant companies that like give cash loans?
Yes. If their principal is in a foreign country and they're nothing more than an association, affiliation, a branch bank, yes, they are not permitted to do business, have accounts for you, deposit accounts, saving accounts, so forth, or engage in real estate transactions or loans. Period. End of story.
Okay.
And that's why I changed my juxtaposition from chasing down Title 15, 1601 through 1693, because it puts you in a capacity of being foreign to the United States and being able to engage in loans. And Carl so eloquently pointed that out to me, and I was blown away. I was getting ready for bed that night. It's like 1 a.m. I was like, I'm going to bed. And I caught it, and I never ended up leaving the shop for 2.5 days. I sat there with my eyeballs bleeding, reading every post that he posted, trying to disprove what he was saying, because it went completely against what I've been studying for the last 5 years. And I couldn't disprove it, and so I had to turn around and start to really read, to retain, and comprehend what he was actually articulating, and it's quite brilliant.
Yeah, it is. Biggest Ponzi scheme in the world. The light bulb went off. I get what you're saying. I get epiphanies like that, yeah. Well, what's the best way to handle all these loans that I've got? I got some active and some old. Do I just need to report the taxes on them and collect, or do I need to?
First things first is to realize that it's an impossibility for you to have a loan.
Yeah. Well, you got to decide if you're gonna fight. Who you gonna fight?
Call it a loan at this point. So you got to change your mindset. That's first things first.
Okay.
It's impossible for you to even got a loan just from what I just articulated right here in the last 5 minutes.
Illegal. Flat out illegal. And all they're doing is taking that.
It's a violation of their policy.
Yeah, I got you.
It's a violation of public law.
If they don't want you to enforce it by asking for the collateral deposit, right? And then
You need to go to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and let them know what's going on, because they're the overseer. They're the ones that enforce it. It's not the courts. It's the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. That's who all your judges are working for, too. Because the United States is issuing the bonds that backs all this shenanigans, all this ignorance. The United States is getting their piece of the pie because they're backing it with bonds, which we are the preferred stockholders of the United States. We're cutting our own throats, and we're backing it to boot.
Where's the comptroller at? What?
The Comptroller of the Currency is underneath the Department of the Treasury. Excuse me, the United States Treasury, or the Secretary of Treasury. The Office
So
of the
you go to, so are you
the
saying you
Office
go
of the
to them?
Go ahead.
Are you saying that you go to them prior to, or are you saying that you can go to them prior to even getting in a situation like that?
Yeah, you can write this all down on your credit application, absolutely, and inform them of the law, because the Supreme Court has already made a ruling that once you inform them of the law, that you have a private right of action immediately without having to exercise a private administrative process.
So if you do it right, you can walk out with your dozer and not have to pay.
It's not the aspect that you're not paying. It's the fact that you couldn't even if you wanted to. Congress never
Private
provided.
right as what? Private right as what?
It's a private right of action. So the Supreme Court, I got this nifty little book from the Supreme Court, and it's called the Supreme Court Maxims. Let me pull it up real quick. And it's very brilliant. In fact, it's got the special wording for the set off. Let me pull it up. Yeah.
It's like drinking out of a water hose. I'm going to get me a recorder. Go back and study these words in these sections.
Oh, let me pull this up. What was it? Court Maxims. Maxims. Supreme Court Maxims.
Wow.
This is from 1998 to 1993, and sent over to me. It's absolutely brilliant, and it goes in to talk about when you give agents an agency or their principal notice of the law, and they engage in contempt of the law, just simply notifying the law is enough for you to enforce your private right of action. No other steps are necessary, which is fucking awesome. And this is coming right from the Supreme Court, and I fucking love it.
Of the United States, huh?
That's correct.
Oh, so what about in justice? They got it, maybe perhaps 29 or 294 US 442.
What is it again?
Oh, okay. It's the maxims. It's the it's section 294 USC or chapter 294 USC 422. I'm gonna put it in the chat because I'm butchering it. I'm sorry, y'all.
That's all right. Yeah, this book goes through expert testimony, harmless error, void contracts, jury instructions. It's a bad mamma jamma. Goes into equity, talks about the Article 3 venues, how you get into them, what needs to be established to have an Article 3 venue, role of government attorney, service of process, Sixth Amendment, goes into traffic violations, talks about all of it. It's absolutely outstanding, an exquisite book. Talks about venue, what I'm looking for. First of all, I just want to type in set off. Pull up that.
So it's covering all the aspects of the bonds they create.
Mm-hmm. Here it is, set off or offset. The right of set off, also called offset, allows entities that owe each other money to apply their mutual debts against each other, thereby avoiding the absurdity of making A pay B when B owes A. Citizens Bank of Maryland versus Strump, 116 S period CT period, that's Supreme Court, 286, 289, 1995, quoting Studley versus Boylston National Bank, 229 U.S. 523, 528, 1913. They're going back all the way to the beginning of the Federal Reserve Act. It's great. And then what was the other one that I wanted to capitalize on from the Supreme Court book? And by the way, the name of this book is governmenttactic.org, Rummaging in the Government's Attic. Governmenttactic.org. It was produced in 2007, and it covered 1998 through 1993. It's a description of documents, collection of U.S. Supreme Court legal maxims compiled by the Department of Justice, DOJ, Civil Division, Appellate Staff from 1993 to 1998. And this book is just bad to the fucking bone.
I just found it. It looks like, was it James M. Attorney in Supreme Court?
Kavaks.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
FOIPA.
Oh, boxes. Yep. It's right there. Y'all go ahead and Google it. It's right there. It's like 299 pages.
That's exactly what it is.
Wow.
Look, I'm not the most intelligent man on this live. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I know some people on here that blow me out of the water. They just don't talk. They don't say nothing. They like to be a fly on the wall and just sit back and observe.
It's really fun, I suppose, when you do the research for what is pertinent to you. If it has something to do with what's relevant in your life and you can apply it and it works well, then I think that's the whole gist of it. Like, just trying to go in there doing stuff just to do it for no reason. I mean, you might kick your own self in the butt, put your foot in your mouth or something. So just be careful with what you do. And I do appreciate you reading, although that was a very long read. It sure did open up a can of worms for me to ask that question instead of even getting involved in those loans, ones who haven't, because I've never done anything like that. There should be a way to prevent any of that nonsense if you're equipped with the right knowledge moving in a certain way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a couple realtors that talk to me and a couple underwriters that talk to me, and they give me like their provisions and policies underneath their corporate charter that they have to abide by. And I'm like, look, this is a direct violation of the policies of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. It's a direct violation of the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And they're like, I know, we've been watching you for a while, but we wanted to show you what we've been instructed to do. So now you can actually go after those organizations for having policies that are contrary to what the policies, rules, public law, and public policy of government actually is, because these chartered entities have agreed to be subject to the Congress and furthermore to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and the Board of Federal Reserve Governors. And
to the states as well.
Yeah, but the states so often have it wrong too, and that's why they tell you don't allow them to try and foreclose on you in the state. Tell them it's out of their jurisdiction. They don't have subject matter. They don't have territorial jurisdiction. This is a federal issue. We're saying the only loans that can be issued are federally. Period. They deal with agriculture, commercial, and industrial use.
See, okay, look, Derek.
Outside the United States.
Derek.
With the exception of HUD.
Derek, oh my goodness, check this out. I see. Oh Lord, this is real big. Now, I've been wrongfully accused of renting an apartment and not paying the rent at that apartment from a whole complex. So what you said was a lot, because their agents are involved. They got their notary, they got their attorney in this complex, and then of course the community manager. They all have come against me on a unit that I didn't even rent. And so now I've done my answer. Of course, it's in the lower courts, and I know that it should not be there, but guess what? Because I've never had any experience. For me, this is me getting my feet wet and challenging, one, their jurisdiction, the lies, because I have a buttload of proof that they're lying, and then I submitted a motion to compel, because I want to know where your proof is, and I want to know where the securities are and the notes and all this stuff that they're probably going to ignore, not, but I'm just getting my experience, because I've never done anything like this before. I've never had anything like this, but one thing I do know, they stole my identity. So with them stealing my identity, trying to collect on a fake debt, we're going to work with that for now.
That's why you want to move it to the federal court under public law 89485, 89-485.
Hold on. Let me write this down in case they get to start acting crazy with me, because if they're not talking the language I want to hear. What is it again?
Public law 89485, July 1st, 1966.
Public law
89485.
1966.
Okay. And also under Title 12, United States Code 615. 615. Because all of these financial institutions and organizations, all the banks, ladies and gentlemen, are in foreign countries. That means every last one of these institutions is operating as a foreign operative on our land, on our soil, and are barred from extending loans, taking deposits, any of that from the Americans. Period.
To add to that, they're running ultra-virus to the Constitution because they don't have an actual banking charter. They're all agents of the Federal Reserve, just to add on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't have the proper...
Rothschild banking organization. 100%.
That's why we call them banksters, huh? I got you.
There's one case that I never hear anybody mention except for one guy, and he's a private banker, and he says that it's called Didert versus the Commissioner. It's like the Federal Reserve Commissioner, I believe, and it lays out how the you're a donor. You're a donor. Spell that out? Yeah, it's Didrich, like DIEDRICH, I think, versus the Commissioner. And there's another one. It's Horace. I think it's like HORAS or something like that, like Horace versus LaSalle Bank. And
yeah, I've heard those two.
He mentions those a lot as pretty much being able to prove, like, if you're going after the, like the trustee angle of it, like, because it basically, the one of them says you're a donor, so they have to, like, if you don't let them know that, hey, that's not a gift, and that you're it's like a donation or something like that, that then they have to pay the taxes. So I think it kind of goes along with the taxes thing, because they're not paying, like, I guess, capital gains or something on it. I don't know exactly. I haven't looked into it, but that's kind of what I've gathered from it. I just know that he mentions those as being pretty powerful.
Maximum equity there's a maximum equity will not aid a volunteer. So if you're gifting them promissory notes or deeds like we do in these contracts, quote unquote, if we're signing naked, we're essentially volunteering or gifting them our money because we're not reserving our rights. I think that's how I look at it.
Yeah,
so
I think
maybe
you're
that'll help.
right. Could you say that again?
So the maxim is equity does not aid a volunteer. A volunteer is somebody who voluntarily gives up their rights. So like when we're going to do all these transactions, our inherent rights are in like for instance, if you're buying a car, when you sit down and sign, you're signing a promissory note, and we're signing it naked. So we're not reserving our interest in the note. So we're volunteering for giving them all the money.
Because of the blank endorsement, they're just taking it as like you're volunteering it as just a freebie.
Yeah, like a donation or a gift, like an accommodation party. So basically, what equity is saying is that you have to stand up for your rights and know how to operate.
Well, you have to correct the record that's being maintained in error. So look, 12 Code of Federal Regulations.
That's the error thing. I think is exactly right, because you're saying, hey, you guys have this down as an error. I need to be corrected, and when you correct it, then it puts them on notice that, or they basically then have to perform in a different manner, right?
So check this out. 12 Code of Federal Regulations, 347.104, permissible financial activities outside the United States. A, limitations on authorized activities. B, authorized activities. The following financial activities are authorized outside the United States. Outside the United States. 1, commercial and other banking activities. 2, financial, including commercial financing, consumer financing, mortgage banking, and factoring, subject to compliance with any attendant restrictions contained in 12 CFR Code of Federal Regulations 225.28b. 3, leasing real or personal property, acting as agent, broker, or advisor in leasing real or personal property, subject to compliance with any attendant restrictions in Title 12 CFR 225.28b. 4, acting as fiduciary, subject to compliance with any attendant restrictions in 12 CFR 225.28b. 5, underwriting credit life, credit accident and credit health insurance. And 6, performing services for other direct or indirect operations of domestic banking organizations, including representative functions, sale or of long-term debt, name savings, liquidating assets acquired to prevent loss on a debt previously contracted in good faith, and other activities that are permissible for a bank holding company under sections 4A2A and 4C1C of the Banking Holding Company Act. Any citizen of the United States in possession of any paperwork or or party to any civil action listing a government agency as the authority not authorized is a felony punishable by a fine of $1,000 per day. See notes, and imprisonment for not more than 1 year or both. Title 18, United States Code, subsection 709, false advertising or misuse of names to indicate federal agencies. Whoever uses as a firm or a business name the words Department of Housing and Urban Development, Housing and Home Financing Agency, Federal Housing Administration, Government National Mortgage Association, United States Housing Authority, or Public Housing Administration, or the letters HUD, FHA, PHA, or USHA, or any combination of the variations of those words, or the letters HUD, FHA, PHA, USHA alone, or with other words or letters reasonably calculated to convey the false impression that such name or business has such connection with or authorization from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Housing and Home Financing Agency, the Federal Housing Administration, the Government National Mortgage Association, the United States Housing Authority, the Public Housing Administration, the Government of the United States, or any agency thereof which does not in fact exist, shall be punished as follows: a corporation, partnership, business, trust, association, or other business entity by fine under this title, an officer or a member thereof participating or knowingly acquiescing in such violation, or any individual violating the section by a fine under this title, or in prison not more than 1 year or both. What's an unauthorized mortgage loan in New York worth? The answer is quite surprising. The contract is actually worth twice the amount listed on the form, in the form of a penalty for executing it. New York Consolidated Laws, Banking Law, B&K subsection 103, restrictions on loans, purchase of securities, total liabilities, and other credit exposures to a bank or a trust company of any one person. No bank or trust company shall, 1, lend to any person, which term shall mean, for the purposes of the subdivision, any individual, partnership, unincorporated association, corporation, or body politic. For purposes of the subdivision, the term mortgage shall include a lien on an existing ownership interest in certificates of stock or other evidence of an ownership interest in, and a proprietary lease from a corporation or a partnership formed for the purpose of the cooperative ownership of real estate. 6, any bank or trust company violating any of the provisions of this subdivision shall forfeit to the people of the state twice the amount of the loan or purchase. What's an unauthorized mortgage loan or an extension of credit worth in California? The answer is quite surprising. The contract is actually worth twice the amount listed on the form, in the form of the penalty for executing it. AB 1301, Financial Institution 781, as used in this article, A, bank means 1, any commercial bank, industrial bank, or trust company incorporated under the laws of this state. 2, any foreign or other nation bank that is licensed by the commissioner under Article 3, commencing with Section 1750 of Chapter 13.1 to maintain a depository agency or branch office as defined in Section 1700 in this state with respect to any office of that type. B, extensions of credit has the meaning set forth in Sections 215.3 of Regulation O. However, for purposes of subdivision, the term member bank, as used in the Section 215.3, means a bank. E, Regulation O means Regulation O, Part 215, commencing with Sections 215.1 of Title 12 of the Code of Federal Regulations of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, source law cited by California enacted 1933, Title 12 CFR Part 215, loans to executive officers, directors, and principal shareholders of member banks, Regulation O, Section 29, Section 760, is added to the Financial Code to read, B, no bank shall acquire, hold, extend credit on the security of, or extend credit for purposes of acquiring or carrying any security of the bank or any controlling person of the bank. C, 1, any bank which acquires or holds securities in violation of this section shall be liable to the people of the state for twice the market, book, or face value of the securities, whichever is greater. And 2, any bank which extends credits in violation of this section shall be liable to the people of this state for twice the amount of the credit so extended. The classic listen up puke scenario, if any of the criminals operating under the Federal Reserve Act even infer you are connected with the United States, the government will fine your sorry butts $10,000 and by imprisonment for not more than 5 years. Title 12 United States Code, subsection 631, false representation as to liability of the United States for acts of corporation punishment. Whoever being connected in the capacity with any corporation organized under this subchapter represents in any way that the United States is liable for the payment of any bond or other obligation of the interest thereon, issued or incurred by any corporation organized under this subchapter, or that the United States incurs any liability in respect of any act or omission of the corporation, shall be punished and fined not more than $10,000 and by imprisonment for not more than 5 years. 7 U.S.C. Chapter 55, Department of Agriculture, from Title 7, Agriculture, editorial notes referenced in text. Title 4 of the revised statute referred to in text was entitled Provisions Applicable to All Executive Departments and consisted of RS subsection 158 to 198, derived from the Act of May 15, 1862, Chapter 72, subsection 112, Statute at Large 387. So the District of Columbia in 1861 through 1962 chartered the Department of Agriculture, established the Bank for International Settlement, Rothschild owned, and it's the source of law for the Title V United States Code government organizations. However, there's another statute. You see, the Title 12 Statute at Large 387 provision. The 12 Statute at Large series was used by President Lincoln as the authority to order the man for inscription in military services for the Civil War. It didn't go well. Soon after the president's pronouncement, riots broke out in New York and elsewhere. The War Department needed a new strategy, so they made it about slavery, and it worked. Needing financing, they chartered once more a national banking system based on New York's banking laws. After the War Department morphed into the Reconstruction Department and ushered in the Reconstruction era. This is the same entity that after 1929 Depression created a Homeowners Loan Act of 1932, and it is in the particular act we find the definition of mortgage loan here. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled that this act may be cited as the Federal Home Loan Bank Act. 6. The term home mortgage means a first mortgage upon real estate in fee simple or leasehold under a renewable lease for not less than 99 years upon which there is located a dwelling. Not more than 3 families, and shall include, in addition to first mortgages, such classes of first lien as are commonly given to secure advances on real estate by institutions authorized under this act to become members under the laws of the state in which the real estate is located, together with the credit instruments, if any, secured thereby. Eligibility to secure advances. Section 9. Any member or non-member borrower of the Federal Home Loan Bank shall be entitled to apply in writing for advances, not loans, advances. Such application shall be in such form as shall be required by the Federal Home Loan Bank with the approval of the board. Section 13, any and all notes, debentures, bonds, or other such bank obligations issued by any bank shall be exempt both as to principal and interest from all taxation. Notes, debentures, and bonds issued by any bank with unearned. Oh, we're getting warned for a violation of speech. I don't know what I said that upset the apple cart. With unearned acceptances of notes, coupons attached shall be accepted at par by such banks in payment of or as a credit against the obligation of any homeowner debtor of such bank. This act has been on the books for 90 years, and it has been the source to destroy and confiscate the wealth of the American people and make them homeless. So let's take a closer look at what the BIS, Bank of International Settlement, is telling us. Number 6, the term home mortgage means a first mortgage upon real estate in fee simple or leasehold under the renewable lease for not less than 99 years. And 2, in addition to first mortgages, such classes of first liens as are commonly given to secure advances on real estate by institutions authorized under this act to become members. Section 9, any member or non-member borrower of the Federal Home Loan Bank shall be entitled to apply in writing for advances. Such applications shall be in such form as shall be required by the Federal Home Loan Bank with the approval of the board. Number 4, the notes, debentures, bonds issued by any bank with unearned coupons attached shall be accepted at par by such bank in payment of or as a credit against the obligation of any homeowner debtor of such bank. In summation, does any American private residential real property held in fee simple or leasehold under the renewable lease for not less than 99 years, a fee title is derived from the term fief, restricted to the ground, the land, and the tenant is a sharecropper. How could there be any permissible first lien on any private residential real property in the several states, since the only permissible first lien is to secure an advance, and advances are restricted to borrowing institutions, not the general public? Additionally, any homeowner debtor can pay their obligation with notes, debentures, and bonds issued. Really? Anyone know of an American citizen who issues notes, debentures, and bonds in regards to real property held in fee simple or leasehold under the renewable lease for not less than 99 years?
Mine's a fee simple, I know that. That's all I know. Mine's a fee simple, I know that.
So look, what are you going to do? You're going to request for a copy of the cash collateral deposit account, collateral, the primary form of collateral used for a security lending transaction or cash securities, or a standby letter of credit. If cash is provided as collateral, the lending agent is, or intermediary, ergo the custody bank will typically be responsible for investing the cash for the term of the loan. Providing cash collateral is the prevalent market practice in the United States. Common loan documents are promissory notes, note guarantees, financial statements, collateral agreements, and appraisal, loan portfolio management comptroller handbook. Introduction. The presumption created by the business judgment rule can be rebutted only but by affirmative allegations of the facts, which, if proven, would establish fraud, bad faith, overreaching, or an unreasonable failure to investigate material facts. Please limit any response to writing, or reduce all responses into writing. Subject: fiduciary activities of national banks. Then you date it. Chief executive officers of national banks, Department of Division of Heads, examining personnel, and other interested parties. Description: annual review of fiduciary accounts pursuant to Title 12, Code of Federal Regulations 9.6c. Appropriate document retention policies and procedures should be in place to ensure that the bank maintains adequate documentation of each annual investment review. This will provide evidence of the bank's review process in the event complaints are lodged against the fiduciary or litigation issues arise. Transactions such as wire transfer, checks, deposits, etc. are disclosed as part of the normal discovery process. Cotton versus Private Bank and Trust Co. 235 F periods Superior Court 2D 809 North Dakota 3 2002 enforcement action process. It is my intentions to secure prompt aid and assistance for this office or from this office and all staff, subject to the Comptroller of the Currency, the OCC hereafter, guidance and administration supported by numerous court decisions, or failing that, to exercise my standing to bring complaint and claim. There can be no misunderstanding and no continuance of the legal presumptions. The OCC is best able to address bank operating deficiencies, non-compliance with laws and regulations, and unsafe and unsound practices. Furthermore, accepting in full measure, it is its responsibility, which is a law, enjoins the performance of a particular object, and silence can only be equated to fraud where there is a legal or moral obligation or duty to speak, or where an inquiry left unanswered would be intentionally misleading. The following request does not pertain to a suspicious activity report, the sole exception to disclosure. Number 2, background. I am previously embroiled in litigation, case number concerning a foreclosure being name of the bank. In order to expedite the current situation, short of the subpoena directed to an agent of your office, the following request based on good faith and to ensure proper execution of all pertinent laws and regulations concerning the listed requests in no particular order are as follows. Per stated guidelines and procedures outlined in the OCC, Office of Comptroller of Currency, directive concerning fiduciary responsibilities in the most expeditious manner provided the following. 1. An authentic copy of reproduction of any and all documents, whether in electronic format or paper, in regards to the required collateral deposit account pursuant to Title 12, United States Code, subsection 84, lending limits in your office custody. 2. An authentic copy or reproduction of any tabulations, amendments to, or any device procedures in use concerning encryption, posting, and interpretive manuals in use. And 3, any authentic copies or reproductions of any and all papers, forms, listings as applicable of any party or parties, whether in the form of verification, originator, co-signer of the collateral deposit account. And you're going to sign it, your name, and you're going to have a witness sign it. Aiding and abetting, Title 18, United States Code 1005, banking fraud. 2, from notices hereby given. This notice, consisting of however many pages, is based on good faith and is intended to establish standing and venue in this instant matter. This is merely notice of intent as a foundation for or perchance to make unnecessary later judicial proceedings. The following is not intended to be complete recitation of all applicable laws and or facts. Furthermore, nor shall the following be deemed to constitute a waiver or relinquishment of any of my rights or remedies, all of which are hereby expressly reserved, including my right to all available remedies against, and whatever the name of the financial institution is, all charges not limited to criminal charges per Title 18, United States Code 1005, unjust enrichment, attempted grand theft of private residential real property, attempt trespass under threat of bodily injury. Congress has provided authority for criminal charges instituted by a private party per Title 12, United States Code 503, and the courts have consistently recognized listed herein related to Title 12, United States Code, subsection 25B, enforcement actions per private parties. The presumption created by the business judgment rule can be rebutted only by affirmative allegations of facts which, if proven, would establish fraud, bad faith, overreaching, or an unreasonable failure to investigate material facts. Please limit any response or reduce any response to writing. Introduction. All matters of law and fact presented herein are extracted from verifiable sources and are but a cursory summary. Failure of interested parties to correct or rebut any given matter of law or fact will be construed as confession of correctness, with the consequence of general application as facts for legal purposes. Fact number 1. Facts common to all causes of action. Nothing can be more material to the obligation than the means of enforcement. Without the remedy, the contract may indeed, in the sense of the law, be said to be not existent or not to exist, and its obligation to fall within the class of those moral and social duties which depend for their fulfillment wholly upon the will of the individual. The ideas of validity and remedy are inseparable, and both are part of the obligation, which is guaranteed by the Constitution against invasion. The obligation of a contract is the law which binds the parties to perform their agreement. Underlining added, Red Cross line versus Atlantic Fruit Co., number 112, argued November 14th and November 15th, 1924. Foreign banking organizations are not permitted to accept a deposit from a citizen or resident of the United States and engages directly in the business of banking outside the United States. Rules and regulations, rights and privileges, duties and liabilities, waivers of obtaining private counsel, Title 12, United States Code, subsection 3102, establishment of federal branches and agencies by foreign bank. B, rules and regulations, rights and privileges, duties and liabilities, exceptions, coordination of examination. In establishing and operating of a federal branch or agency, a foreign bank shall be subject to the rules, regulations, and orders as the comptroller considers appropriate to carry out this section, which shall include provisions for service of process and maintenance of branch and agency accounts separate from those of the parent bank. A foreign banking organization is not authorized to conduct banking in the several states. Source: Title 12, Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, subsection 211.21, Foreign Banking Organization definition. A, affiliates of foreign bank or of a parent of a foreign bank means any company that controls, is controlled by, or is under common control with the foreign bank or the parent of the foreign bank. B, agency means any place of business of a foreign bank located in any state at which credit balance are maintained, checks are paid, money is lent, or to the extent not prohibited by state or federal law, deposits are accepted from a person or entity that is not a citizen or a resident of the United States. And D, banking subsidiaries with respect to a specified foreign bank means a bank that is a subsidiary, as the term bank and subsidiary are defined in sections 2 of the BHC Act 12 USC 1841. J, domestic branch means any place of business of a foreign bank located in any state that may accept domestic deposits and deposits that are incidental to or for the purpose of carrying out transactions in foreign countries. And foreign bank means an organization that is organized under the laws of a foreign country and that engages directly in business of banking outside the United States. Federal civil criminal liability under Title 18 United States Code 1005, bank entries, reports, and transaction, unjust enrichment, whoever being an officer, director, or agent or employee of the Federal Reserve Bank, member bank, depository institution, holding company, national bank, insured bank, branch or agency of a foreign bank or organization operating under Section 25 or 25A of the Federal Reserve Act, whoever without such authority makes, draws, issues, puts forth, or assigns any certificate of deposit, draft, or order, bill of exchange, acceptance note, debenture, bond, or other obligation or mortgage, judgment or decree, or whoever makes any false entry in any book, report, or statement of such bank, company, branch, agency, or organization with the intent to injure or defraud such bank, company, branch, agency, or organization, or any other company, body, politic, or corporate, or any individual person, whoever with the intent to defraud the United States or agency thereof, or any financial institution referred to in this section participates or shares in or receives directly or indirectly any money, profit, property, or benefit through any transaction, loan, commission, contract, or any other act of any such financial institution shall be fined not more than $1 million or imprisoned not more than 30 years, or both, aiding and abetting any law firm collectively would be chargeable with aiding and abetting. Title 12 United States Code, subsection 1847, penalties. A, criminal penalties. Whoever knowingly violates any provision of this chapter, or being a company violates any regulation or order issued by the board under this chapter, shall be imprisoned not more than 1 year, fined not more than $100,000 per day for each day during which the violation continues, or both. 2, whoever with the intent to deceive, defraud, or profit significantly knowingly violates any provision of this chapter shall be imprisoned not more than 5 years, fined not more than $1 million per day for each day during which the violation continues, or both. Every officer, director, agent, or employee of the bank holding company shall be subject to the same penalties for false entries in any book, report, or statement of such bank holding company as are applicable to officers, directors, agents, and employees of member banks for false entries in any books, reports, statements of member banks under Section 1005 of this title, banking fraud, violating any law or regulation under Title 12 United States Code subsection 1818(1)(2), permitting penalties to be assessed against both insured depository institution or institutions and institutions affiliated party or parties. Subsection 1813 U1, defining institutions affiliated parties as including employees of insured depository institutions. See also ID subsection 1813 U4, including even independent contractors such as attorneys, appraisers, or accountants as institution affiliated parties in certain circumstances. U, institution affiliated party. The term institution affiliated party means for any independent contractor, including an attorney, appraiser, or accountant, who knowingly or recklessly participates in A, any violation of any law or regulation, and V, number 5, Roman numeral, violation. The term violation includes any action alone or with another or other for or towards causing, bringing about, participating in, concealing, or aiding and abetting a violation. Under penalty of perjury, I attest that the best of my knowledge, my current knowledge, understanding, and belief, all matters of law and facts set forth herein are accurate and true, so help me God. And then you sign it with a witness. It's quite brilliant. It's really quite brilliant.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So like, to be able to enforce the situation, will we file a federal claim and get our claim together correctly and go into the clerk and enter it in as a claim? Or
first, I would deal with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and I would deal with the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, the Oversight Committee.
Oh, shouldn't you go to your loan people first and just see if they'll close it out or if they'll pay for it with the collateral account, right?
Take the collateral deposit account and render, settle, and close this account.
Then if they won't do that, they won't cooperate, and they try to play like dumb or something, then you can just say, okay, I'll just take it to the comptroller then. And then carry on.
What's that again? What's that again?
The Comptroller of the Currency. The Office of the OCC, Office of Comptroller of the Currency.
Can you tell us the publication that you're reading so that way, or whatever it is, so that way?
This is not a publication. This is directly from Carl Killicott's Facebook page.
Oh, okay. So it's just a, it's all like in a post or a link or something that he has?
This is a series of posts from 2016 to 2025.
Ooh, okay. So it's
and I went painstakingly and copy and pasted each one of them because I recognized what he was doing and I could see it. And once I saw it, I realized that I needed to take corrective measures on my end. I was using Title 15, 1601 through 1693. I was using the 73rd Congress, First Session, Volume 77, Part 1, which coincides with what he's doing. For Title 15, 1601 through 1693, you're operating in a capacity known as a consumer, which has consumer-covered transactions and consumer transaction accounts, which puts you in a foreign jurisdiction outside the United States. So I realized really quickly that I had commingled, or I had drawn an inference that was incorrect, and I had to correct it. And how did I come to that determination? Was reading Carl Killicott's work, realizing that they can't even give us loans, ladies and gentlemen.
So you're saying if you act as a consumer, they can, because it's a foreign, you're
operating in a foreign capacity outside the United States that is authorized.
You don't want to be a consumer in this case.
You don't want to be the consumer. The consumer is a bad position to be in. It's a bad capacity.
Except for in other situations, we want to be the consumer, right?
That's all up to you. But again, once you start to understand what Carl Killicott's pointing out is when they did the abrogation of the gold and mortgage, everything, they never gave the American people the ability to pay. So Title 31, United States Code 1501, tells you where you're supposed to be sending all your alleged bills, which is to the Congress. They're supposed to be taking care of everything for you. Instead, we're coming in as surety because we're claiming certain capacities, thinking that we're comprehending what the law is, and in all actuality, we've misconstrued it.
horribly.
This is interesting that you had mentioned, there was some stuff you were mentioning when you were reading that made me think of another thing that one guy had said was that utility bills, he's like, they're actually, you're not supposed to pay for, you shouldn't have to be responsible for paying for your utilities if you can, or if you correct the record with them and tell them that you're not operating it as a commercial business. They think that you're basically operating a business out of your home because you're listed as a resident, and the actual resident means like you're basically like a, acting in commerce. It's a commercial word. And so you just have to correct the record, let them know that, hey, this is being used for, normal household goods or household uses. And then you don't have to pay your electricity bill.
It's not used for commercial purposes, and it's not used for industrial purposes.
Yeah, and I haven't tried that yet, but I'm like, really? That's it? He's like, yeah, correct the record and tell them to pay the taxes on it.
There's an exemption in every state, every county, and every city for it.
So where, is that something that we would put, correcting the record, would we file with the county clerk?
Well, I think it's electric and water, I think is all it's good for. Or electric, water, and gas, I think.
It's for utility.
Yeah, public utility.
So then would that be into the record of the county clerk?
I think just with the company, yeah. Whoever does I guess, I don't know. I was thinking electrical company.
Look. Let's not think about it, because thinking means we don't fucking know. Let's be specific about it. So you're going to get a hold of directly who you're dealing with, whether it be B&H Gas or the local utilities, and you're going to get a hold of them and let them know that they're maintaining a record in error, okay? And then it needs to be corrected. This is for private household use and consumption. It is not for resale. It's not for agriculture, commercial, or industrial purposes. Correct the record. Zero balance the account.
Would that be a form of a notarized letter?
It's called a notice. Simply sending them a notice. And then you can put the caveat in there. Your failure to correct the record that you're maintaining an error do cause harm, damage, loss, or hardship, and an injury in fact. If you fail to correct the record, and it continues to cause harm, damage, loss, hardship, and an injury in fact, you may be liable as a joint tortfeasor carrying a primary active degree of fault for the harm, damage, loss, and the hardship of failing to correct the record that you're maintaining in error. By default, because when we apply for things, we aren't giving them instructions and being specific, it always defaults to commercial, agricultural, and industrial purposes and uses. Always by default, because your failure to clarify your intent and purposes, it always defaults to the benefit of the United States government in Title 26, a taxable event. Always. That's the name of the game, folks. If you don't correct the record, by default, it always defaults to the benefit of the United States administering a bankruptcy. It's always presumed and assumed to be agriculture, industrial, and commercial, period.
Okay.
And then they use your social security number to access funds, right? To take out
an exemption account. Yeah, your application opens up a revolving line of credit. It's all taken care of.
So that's why the electrical is kind of like the car at the dealership. It's just the perk for them using.
Same principle. Yes, your failure to specify your intent and purpose with it defaults to agriculture, commercial, and industrial. You have to correct the record. And you could do that on the application in the first instance, or you can correct the record later. And once you correct the record, you can tell them to give you all your payments back.
And so when you get your bill, it's telling you your usage, but that's because it's a reflection of what they're trading.
Because the control of the currency and the Treasury says that they must maintain records, books, and general entries for accounting purposes.
And they're selling it to whoever, to where it's like just like a statement, essentially, like you would if it was in the investment. You're getting the interest or whatever on it, and they're just letting you know what it is. To You don't even have to send in anything. Just collect it.
In the comments, that's Title 15, 1691.
That's for
It's right there in the
consumers, isn't it? There.
Title 15, 1691. You can never be denied credit, period. Ever.
But that's for consumer transactions, isn't it?
Again, because they took away your ability to make payment, guys, they can't create an impossibility, leaving you fucking impoverished. I use Title 15, 1691. Yes, it's there for any. If you read it, it says any credit application, any applicant cannot be denied an extension of any credit. It doesn't matter if it's consumer, agriculture, industrial, private credit. So again, you just have to read it. You just have to read it and understand it, and then know how you're going to enforce it. You might have to take action. You might have to take what is known as civil action for the civil liability that they have under adverse action. And again, I don't have all the answers, but to me, it's pretty black and white. And then along with Carl's work here, it's even more abundantly clear now more than ever. I'm absolutely enjoying this, gaining this acquired knowledge, and I'm hoping that it's going to help you guys out. But again, there's no substitution for reading, ladies and gentlemen. My word isn't the gospel of Paul's, nor is Carl's. Sure, we have proof in what we've done thus far, and I like to adapt and overcome. You know, I see another avenue. I'm not going to stay steadfast in what I'm doing when there's a clear-cut, better path. The path of least resistance is always what I'm looking for, just like electricity, just like the animals in nature. They're not going to forge a new path through the jungle. They're going to follow the path that's already there, the path of least resistance. And that's all I'm doing here by analyzing and studying his work, which to me is extraordinarily brilliant. And it only took me reading 3 of his posts to realize and doing some back checking, researching his work to see if maybe he made a palpable error. And when I discovered that he hadn't made an error, then I stopped double checking his work and started reading it hardcore to see what I could glean from it. And then there's things that I call into question because of the things that I have learned and researched and the things that I prevailed with in court, only to realize they allowed me to prevail to give the illusion that we are correct. So we'll lead 100,000 other people down the wrong path and they can fleece all those. So they let you go through and you got a nice order in your favor, but all your family, friends, and constituents are all failing miserable. How is that possible? Because they let you through to give the illusion that you were on the right track, so they can fleece 100,000 others. Some of us are very persistent. We get through with what we're doing, only to find out later that they merely allowed it because we would run around and televise it, and that we would bring them 100,000 more people they could fleece. So they let one go through. Just common tactics and mathematics. It's not rocket science. Under the War Powers Act, they're allowed to lie. They're allowed to deceive you. Judges sitting on the bench are allowed to lie to you right to your face. That's what's so important about understanding the law of mercantile and Title 15, 1666. Title 15, but the special supplemental rules for maritime admiralty that were adopted in 1966. It's so imperative to understand the different venues. I sit back now thinking, wow, how pompous and arrogant was I, prevailing in a couple instances and running around broadcasting it, thinking that I was correct when all they did was just let me slip through the cracks because they knew damn good and well I was going to run around fucking scream it out to the world, only to lead 100,000 other people into the fucking funnel web spider's lair to fall victim, right? So that's why I'm on here trying to correct the record now so people don't make those same fundamental mistakes. The issue is the fact that they cannot extend loans, put lien on real property owned by Americans domestically within the several states, part of the Union of States. They can't do it. They're forbidden. Period. You want to take everything into the federal court because the state court will allow them to fleece you. If you accept it, if you allow it to be in that venue, you have to make the issue.
No, I'm not answering that correctly.
So how is it not? What does that mean? I'm uncertain. So, and maybe one day soon, after I digest this information a little better, remember, each one teach one. Talking about it helps to commit it to memory and leads to being better articulating it in a multitude of ways, saying the same thing using the sound doctrines and principles laid out here. Hopefully one day soon, maybe I can speak to Carl and he'd be more than happy to join me on something like this. And we can go tit for tat back and forth on this and help people really ascend to the mind. I don't know whether he is open for something like that or not. But I know one thing is most people that I know that are literate don't even want to talk to somebody who hasn't put in the effort to at least comprehend what they're articulating, right? So that's what we're doing here today. That's what we're doing here and now. Correcting the record, coming together, assembling as brilliant, intelligent people, you know, serving the purpose for the greater good of mankind, yeah? And hopefully by having this intellectual dialect and gaining better comprehension of the material before us, I can approach Carl and say, hey, sure like to have you join me and in open dialect with these brilliant men and women that have supported us all through this, and see if we can open up the gates to a great conversation and some great dialect. So, as I've been informed of this far, I haven't heard that he actually comes on and has done any presentations or talked openly on any social media platforms. I'd love to open up the realm of possibilities of it being plausible.
This reminds me a lot of this. There's the letter that, I don't know if you've heard the letter, this guy named Colonel Edward Mendel House, letter to Woodrow Wilson back in like 1913 or whatever. And it was some private letter or something. This guy was I don't know what you want to call him. He was just like a elitist lobbyist kind of guy. He didn't really have any specific role, but he just was like pretty tight with all these people, and he was in with the bankers. And anyhow, there's a letter that they, I guess, uncovered from Woodrow Wilson's, all his stuff whenever he died. And it talks about how they, were going to, with the whole birth certificate scam and all this, and he talks about how if 1 in a million figure it out or whatever, then whatever. But like essentially, it's almost like they figured if you figure it out, well then good on you. But
it was allegedly a conversation that happened between Teddy Roosevelt and Colonel Mendel House in 1930. Woodrow Wilson, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it's for sure true, but I mean it definitely goes along with this whole.
Whether or not he said it is irrelevant because it's exactly what's transpired.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Whether it can be verified, it doesn't matter one way or the other because it's exactly the way the system has played out since then.
Yeah, he says they will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser. For not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans, and if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. After all, the only logical way to fund government by floating liens and debt to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges.
Yep. So,
fucking crazy. Well, if little you and me and all these guys are talking about it, I'd say we ain't gonna let it go for that much longer. But I don't want to be.
They don't, and I think they understand that. I think that's why the banking system is seeking some adjustment and corrective measures, but it'll always be the same. They'll never be able to get out from underneath what they owe the American people and furthermore the people of the world. So it's just a matter of time, but systematically things are changing due to the advent of technology. You know,
yeah, I think they're getting away from the commercial paper and they're going with this whole.
It doesn't matter because whether it's electronic transfer or digital fund transfer, it makes no difference. It's all the same. It's all the pledging of your private intellectual property and your precious valued time commodity, known as your energy, into the future. That's all it is. You are the currency, you are the pot of gold, you are the unlimited resource, and it will always be that way. There's nothing of intrinsic value when it comes to credit. It's intangible. You can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it, you can't fill up your gas tank with it. There's nothing of intrinsic value when it comes to credit. It's nothing more than book entries. That's it.
Promise that you'll go to work for the next 20 years or whatever.
Book entries. That's all it is. It's called cash on credit.
Money on account.
You're giving them the cash, which is your note. Your note, draft, bill of exchange, bank acceptance, trade acceptance. Okay? On credit. That's it.
What was it, Walker Todd? Was it Walker Todd that talks about it in that one, whatever it is, that publication? Can't remember.
It's very brilliant what Walker Todd did, but this is even greater than that. This is when I started reading this, what Carl was putting out there, I had to hold the press and get everybody together because they can't extend you a loan. They can't take deposits from you. They can't open savings accounts for you. They are not allowed to do business domestically within the United States, in the several states or the Union of States. I don't care if they're a non-member bank, a banking affiliate, a banking association, a branch bank. It doesn't fucking matter. The status quo is the same. Period. End of story. So that's what I'm trying to press upon everybody, is to be able to see it and then to show them how to go about it properly to get enforcement, not necessarily through the court, but through the comptroller of the currency, through the board of governors of the Federal Reserve Bank, letting them know that these institutions are violating public law, public policy, statutes at large, Title 12, and the provisions that were implemented by the government, by Congress, under, what is it, 89, 485? Let me pull it up again. I don't want to misquote it, because that would be a travesty. We don't want to be thinking, we want to know. 89, 485, July 1st, 1966. Violating again Title 12, United States Code 615. That's we just want to stick to the facts, and that puts them into submission, or they face personally aiding and abetting, $1 million fine, 30 years in prison. So can you imagine a state court judge finding out that you know about Title 18, 1005, and he's foreclosed on your property? And you can go and put his ass in jail for that because he should have known better. He had a duty to know the law.
What was that one again? Title 18 what?
1005.
1005.
Okay, so I was seeing on your YouTube channel some videos about liens. So let's say a bank.
They're not permitted to have a lien on your property. That's what we're just going over. They're not permitted to do that.
Yeah, so like, for instance, if a agency sends a notice of lien, but they don't actually verify that there's ever actually a lien, and then either way, even if there was, and they drain your account and put you.
You have a private right of action. You have a private right of action in the federal courts. They're not permitted, prohibited from doing such against anybody that is a member of the Union of States or the several states. They are prohibited from doing business with, period. End of story.
What office is the comptroller of currency sit in?
It's its own office, but it sits underneath the Treasury Department.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It's kind of like the Office of Foreign Asset Control. It's its own division within the Treasury Department, underneath the Secretary of Treasury.
Secretary of Treasury. Treasury.
Uh-huh. So, with that said, I would encourage everybody to go check out Carl Killicott's page on Facebook. I mean, my wife and I have been going at this now.
I couldn't find his page for some reason.
And like I said, it might disappear after a while. I don't know. I can't believe the information that he has put out there hasn't been suppressed to a greater magnitude, because it is hard hitting and in your face. And when I first stumbled across him, I guess I stumbled across him. My wife said 2 years ago I had commented on one of his posts, and I didn't realize it. And then she went all the way back to 2016 when he started posting, and went through the painstaking, arduous task of copying everything, putting it into Word document. So I got almost 400 pages of his posts in case it's ever taken from the internet. One, I want to archive it. Two, that's the best way to learn. And I don't necessarily like wanting to be on Facebook. So it was a 2-day extravaganza when I first discovered him, and I was only able to go back to 2022. Well, my wife does her stuff on a computer, and she was able to access all the way to 2016. And essentially, what I can deduce from all of this is he's just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. He's really not deviating any. It's the same thing. And I think we'd all be wise to take heed in what he's saying and apply it efficiently, effectively, and be very assertive when doing so. Because they're not allowed to give you loans, put liens on your property, have deposit accounts, have savings accounts, any of that stuff, because all the banks are foreign and are to be doing business outside the United States. Period. Commercial loans, consumer loans, all that shit is outside the United States. It's impossible for them to do it internally, domestically, in the several states or the Union of States to Americans. Period. Period. And I can't stress that enough. And that's why I shifted from Title 15, 1601 through 1693 and said, look, corrective measures need to be taken effective immediately. You've been listening to me for years, and you've prevailed in some of these instances. Understand that it's a fluke. It's because they're allowing it to happen. Period. So some win while others lose. It's a Russian roulette thing. Don't fall subject to the Russian roulette. I want the straight, clear-cut path. I don't want to play Russian roulette. I don't want to prevail sometimes and have my ass handed to me on others. All right? So once we start applying the law as it is to be applied, you prevail, not some of the time, not part of the time, every time. And that's where I want you guys. That's where you deserve to be. That's where you will be. So, and I hope you guys can appreciate that. That's why I dedicate so much of my time to doing these lives and communicating with people. Not here to experiment with your lives. I know there's a lot of people out there that do that shit. That's not me. I want to see people be harmonious and live amongst one another, having ascended of the mind and being able to help their fellow brothers and sisters in the community, because people are typically good by nature. And very rare that there's a bad apple. And if there is one, maybe they're just sorely misunderstood and painted to be that way, even though they're not. So take everything with a grain of salt, eat the meat, spit the bone. Drawing conclusions is dangerous. It may limit your ability to ascend to the mind. So keep an open mind. Next month I might discover something from another guy that's even more poignant than what Carl's sharing. Then again, maybe not. But this information, I have the ears and the eyes to see it. And it goes without saying that I've been at this a long time. So for me to get excited about something, I don't know, maybe it means nothing to you guys, but the people that pay close attention to what I've been doing for the last 15 years, they go, we better pay attention. We better start looking at what this guy's sharing, because Derek doesn't just fucking go off radar on random posts of certain people. If he's saying, hey, this is pertinent information, we should probably look at it. That's all I'm asking you guys to do. That's all I'm inviting you to do. Not here to change your mind, not here to change your free will, not here to change your opinion. Not even the Heavenly Father will do that. You've got free will, obviously. He's not even going to try and do that. So why would I think that I could? All I'm here to do is plant seeds, and hopefully you water them, nurture them, and they grow and ferment, and your thought process and patterns and frequencies change, that of which to help you ascend to the mind, So.
Hey, Derek, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
When you mention about the private right of action after you tell people what the law is and they decide not to follow it, sometimes I forget. But what does that mean? Does that mean like a right of action is like the right to sue, but privately? What is that, like equity? And
yeah, you have a private right of action because you've been caused harm, damage, loss, or hardship, or an injury in fact. You have the ultimate standing to bring a claim.
And for those damages, you could like lien and attach their like private or public property. And then
right. Do the IRS 433A, 433B list their business assets, list their personal assets, but the law and the statute for which they're bound to perform underneath gives you the remedy for your action, your private right of action, especially after you put them on notice of what you've recently discovered, right? Ignorance of the law excuses no one, especially after they've been put on notice of it. I mean, they were already expected to know the law and the policies and procedures, so the fact that they didn't is preposterous in and of itself. But the fact that you gave them notice at that point, you have your private right of action. You don't need to go through this 90-day private administrative process, because the Supreme Court says once you've informed them of the law, that's sufficient to grant rise to your private right of action to get your recoupment.
So whether that be the equity you gave them to get that back, or for an example, because I think it's very important. Like for example, if somebody wants to go out their way and not listen to the law blatantly, then like if they were to have like property, houses and stuff like that, I think if like people like start like really enforcing their rights and if they start losing like their property, well, you know what, or thinking it from a different perspective, it's not even something new. It's something that's obvious already. Somebody that that does not follow the law loses their property.
Well, if you look at it this way, even if you've been in a foreclosure in the past and your property has been taken from you unlawfully and illegally, you still have a private right of action right now to go back and get a recoupment of your general tangible and general intangible. You have the right of restoration.
Yeah. It's like equity. That would be fair.
Absolutely, and I constantly advocate that people go understand the maximums and sound doctrines and principles of equity. It's very important. You have the highest equitable claim. You're the one that brought value. You were never compensated. It's an uneven exchange. To have a legally binding contract, all parties must be fully availed of the facts, terms, and conditions, and nothing must be hidden. Nothing must be concealed. There must be no misrepresentation of material facts or concealment of material facts. There can be no fraud in the inducement or fraud in the factum in order to entice people into an artificer scheme to unjustly enrich their benefit, or to unjustly enrich and benefit their principal to your detriment. It's real simple. It's real simple stuff.
It's really clear. Like the justice, and for people to get justice for their wrongs. That's why the law is really, very beautiful. You know what? I'm looking up right here 433A and 433B. It says collection information statement. What is that?
The 433A is for their private assets, and the 433B is for their business assets. So when this would be something that in a supplemental hearing you would bring up for right of replevin, writ of levy, writ of garnishment,
writ of
attachment, and writ of execution. You would want to know and have a cognizant list of all the assets, CDs, bank accounts, investment, 801k, 401k, all that good stuff.
Okay.
So if you got to liquidate their estate in order to get made whole, you have the ability to do so, and the sheriff or the marshals know exactly where to go get it. Or you could put your foreign judgment or declaratory judgment or default judgment into the commercial chamber and sell it to the bank for 70 cents on the dollar, or whatever you negotiate it for. That way you don't have to spend the next 5 years waiting to collect. You can just go to the bank and they'll buy it out from you. They got nothing but time, right?
Yeah.
You can go enjoy life. So there's different processes, rules, remedies that can be ascertained using different venues and different processes. But the main thing is to understand they could never give you a loan in the first place. They could never put a lien on your property in the first place. They could never have a deposit account for you in the first place. The law does not provide for it. They're outside the scope of their authority, jurisdiction, venue, and the law. Public policy, they're outside of public policy, they're outside of public law, they're outside of the intent of Congress.
And when you mentioned the marshal, that's the office of the marshal of that state?
U.S. Marshals are the largest glorified collection agencies in the world. They're permitted to go anywhere in the world and to ascertain any property, including man, for the purpose of prosecution or liquidation.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now. It says asset forfeiture. This one is meant for granted tort claim letters from the United States. Well, that's so cool. It says 1984, when Congress passed the Comprehensive Crime Control Act, which provided federal prosecutors and agents the legal and regulatory tools necessary to keep up with and ahead of those who commit crime for economic benefit. That's cool. So basically, like, how would they forfeit the asset? Like, let's say there's
they forfeit their assets by engaging in criminal activity. One, disregard for the law. They forfeited all their profit, gain, futures, all of that.
So the law is
the sound doctrine and principle in commerce is that you can't benefit from your own wrong. So he who bears the advantage also bears the disadvantage. He who gains the advantage by creating the contract, right, also bears the disadvantage that comes along with it.
I was going to ask, what was that anecdote that you were that it was about that they called the loan officer in the bank and the money's already ready for the loan?
That's where they're talking about that these agencies can't actually extend you loans because they would, for the collateral cash deposit account, they would actually have to have the cash on hand, so it doesn't constitute a loan because they didn't actually have in their vault at the time you applied for a loan. They didn't actually have the cash on hand, therefore there could be no loan.
And what case law was that one?
That was dealing with, let me go back up here. That was dealing with the Federal Reserve Board, no contract signed in the several states is legally binding, i.e. worthless paper. It was dealing with the Federal Reserve ruling where they were dealing with Mr. Stevens, Mr. Martin, Mr. Brown, and they were talking about the extension of a loan has to be granted by the, they call it the main office, home office. So the home office is the foreign bank in a foreign jurisdiction outside the United States. And what the bank loan officer actually is, pursuant to this hearing with the Federal Reserve, is a, one second here, it's called a loan production office, which is either a branch bank, a member bank, a non-member bank, an affiliate, but they have to call the home office, which is outside of the United States, to approve it, which means they don't have the funds because they can't instantaneously transfer the funds to that location. So what they're essentially doing is they're issuing a check, which is called check kiting, and you couldn't possibly gotten a loan because they didn't have the fungible funds on hand. If I lent you credit, can you give me credit back? No, because credit is intangible and doesn't exist. It has no intrinsic value. It's nothing more than a promise, essentially.
Well,
how did you lend me something that doesn't exist? And then I want something of substance in return.
Well,
how does that work?
Each party could extend credit. I guess it would be
each party, look, if you extend your private credit and they extend their credit, then where's the loan? That's the whole point.
And they actually deposit the promissory note. They deposit that on the account as an asset. So they give you credit off after they deposit your promissory note into the collateral account, and that is where the money is created. That's why when they want people to loan money, it's because you're creating money right then and there. That moment, there's now, like, they didn't have to subtract it out of their pile. It just added it to the whole economy.
That's affirmed under the 73rd Congress, First Session, Volume 77, Part 1. It's affirmed where it's stated that your over-the-counter security under 48 statute at large is actual cash value, dollar for dollar, at par. It's supposed to be canceled, not for reissuance. Which our brother Sean down there in the comment section earlier was talking about Section 144A, which comes out of the Securities Exchange Act. And he's correct. Certain securities don't have to be registered. Again, those are the ones that they're issuing off to the off-balance bookkeeping entries of the ledger, and they're making your negotiable instrument non-negotiable at that point, but they're taking it off the books of the bank, so they no longer have to show it as a credit liability due and owing to you, but they also have to remove the asset from the bank's books as well.
Yeah,
that's saying go back to the call reports and go to schedules RC balance sheet line 13 that shows the asset, which is your over-the-counter security, the promissory note, which has actual cash value, and then pull up the RCE deposit liabilities, which is the credit liability due and owing to you, known as the payables or account payable. You actually are the one that creates the funds. That's what the MoneyNet Daily Log Transaction Report 120 shows. It shows that the source of the funds and the destination of the funds came back to you, but they created a secondary account unbeknownst to you, which is in fact the collateral deposit account for offset or set off purposes. And you're demanding that they use the collateral deposit account for set off and offset purposes to render, settle, and close the account. Period. End of story. Balancing the books, canceling the transaction. There never was a loan.
They never put any risk or anything of substance into it, so they didn't.
Well, when they securitized it, they change the risk and the cost absent your knowledge. They never fully inform you of the material fact that when they securitize and take your transaction and shuttle it off to the off-balance side of the ledger, off-balance sheet ledgering, okay, they never tell you that it changes the risk and the cost. That puts you at a disadvantage. You're not being fully informed of the nature and cause of the transaction. There is no legally binding contract at that point. They've subverted from the intent of the original contract, not that they could have ever even engaged in the original intent of the contract, because it's impossible for them to give loans in the several states. Title 12, 615. They're all foreign. They all work for the Bank of the Rothschild. They're not allowed to deal with Americans, period. So, anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That's why I came on tonight. A bunch of people were messaging saying, hey, we haven't seen you for a while. It's because I'm balls deep in this literature, but I can better articulate it to you guys in hopes to help you ascend to the mind and help other people throughout your community, your aunts, your uncles, your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your nephews, your cousins, because 2025 is the year that things change drastically and for the better. It's time that we govern ourselves accordingly and take hold of our rights, titles, interests, dividends, derivatives, debentures, hediments, general tangibles, general intangibles, chattel security, trust residuals, rents, profits, proceeds, futures, and annuities. It's time, because if we don't, they're going to continue to use it for nefarious activities. We're the cause of the problem. And in order to fix that, first, we have to acknowledge that we're the problem. That's one of the toughest fucking things to do, is to admit fault. To realize you're the problem means that you are the solution. Wear that humility well, all right? And let's move forward from it. Until we realize we're the problem, there is no viable solution. That is the real issue here.
Right, and then we correct the record, right?
That's right. It's about accountability, liability, liability, and responsibility. That's all it is. And we have all the power. And we've been dubiously duped in believing that we have no power. And I'm telling you right now, you can correct the record that's being maintained in error at any fucking time. There's nothing anybody can do about it. And if they stand in your way, they go to fucking prison and they pay $1 million. That's a personal guarantee, a personal $1 million out of their own fucking pocket for aiding and abetting. Okay? Engaging in simulated legal processes, sham legal pleadings, foreclosing in state courts where they're absolutely forbidden and barred from doing so.
What was that you just said about the sham legal? What'd you say?
I shut down a lot of courts with simulated legal process using sham pleadings because
simulated legal. There you go.
That supervises legal process say that they believe or they think to the best of their knowledge and not swear out under the pains and penalties of perjury. So you don't get to face your accuser. You're facing somebody who read something to be a fact that was never there, has no firsthand perfected knowledge of anything, and people allowed to continue on under a venue of maritime admiralty in the lower courts under Article 1, Section 8. Military tribunals and inferior courts.
So, Derek, you just send the notice you send it to the judge, the one who did it, and as well you send it to the CEO. And the
the Office of Comptroller of Currency,
Okay.
the original alleged creditor, the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve Board, the Federal Reserve, and you put them on notice. Might have to do a little due diligence into their charter. You might have to inquire into their charter through the 8K and the 10K through the SEC, or get a hold of the Secretary of State and get their corporate banking charter or their corporate charter and find out if they're affiliated or a bank branch or a non-banking member or member bank affiliated with a foreign entity. If they are in any way, shape, or form affiliated with a foreign bank, which they all are because all the banks are not here. They're in Europe, they're in England, they're in Britain, they're in Germany, they're in Italy. They're not here in the United States. Period.
You can look that up. You can really look that up. That's so true. They all have a subsidiary out here or something like that.
Yep.
Now, where about would you go to look it up at?
Chat GPT, Google, wherever you can. Just
I don't know about Chat GPT, but I mean,
it's terms. It's certain terms that you can use that will point them in the right direction to gather information, and it depends on what level you have, the free one or the paid version. You can get, and then they also have a law like to create legal, lawful documents.
I'm gonna say this: if you're using Chat GPT, you might want to triple check the information you're getting. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, because I looked it up on like what Carl put onto his and they were saying, well, they'll call you a sovereign and this and that. Now I'm paying the $20 a month when I'm not doing it.
Not mine. They never call me that. No, because I checked it. It knows who I am because I explicitly let it know. If you're dealing with me, you're going to deal with me how I say to deal with me. Period.
Right.
You gotta check it.
Yeah, you got to check it and let it know who you are. And it don't run you. You run it. That's your computer. That's your Chat GPT. And you got to tell it what to do.
Yeah, but you could tell it the sky's green, and it would tell you that it was green. So that doesn't.
But if you want to play that kind of game, then you play. I'm serious with mine. I don't, and then I do back it up. Whatever they give me, I go and do further research. I don't just rely solely on that. And I said that, so you have to double verify. Even with other stuff, you want to have proof to back that up too. It's not just one source that you want to go to on anything.
Look at this. The Comptroller of the Currency does in fact regulate non-bank finance companies, aka loan servicers. Aren't those third-party debt collectors? All they are is loan servicers.
Yep.
The permissible activities are contained in Title 12 United States Code 1864 and implementing regulations in Title 12 CFR 5.34 E5V for national banks. Filing process, page 19. Expedited review. The bank service company must engage only in activities that are permissible for the bank service company. The permissible activities are contained in Title 12 United States Code 1864 and the implementing regulations Title 12 CFR 5.34 E5V for national banks. The permissible activities listed in the implementing regulations is codified as Title 12 CFR 5.34 E5V. Title 12 CFR 5.34 E5V is restricted to courier services. Title 12 CFR subsection 5.34 operating subsidiaries of national banks. V, providing courier services between financial institutions. I mean, what Carl's laid out is brilliant, guys. And like I'm saying, I got 400 and some odd pages of his posts, and we only touched 27 pages tonight. We didn't even scratch the surface.
What time did you come on, Derek?
I don't know. I threw my alarm clock out the window a long time ago, guys. I'm not joking. Over 15 years ago, I got rid of my alarm clock. I've lived the life that most people dream of. Some people don't. And my lifestyle is different than most. And it's only because I understand there's no substitution for reading, and acquired knowledge without action is worse than a broke dick at a porn star conference. All right. So, gaining this knowledge means absolutely nothing and is futile if you don't put it into action. And I know a lot of people are fence riders and are scared to pull the trigger because of the alleged consequences that they could fall prey to. But, it's like Big Billy Dodd said before he passed on. Most of my mentors are dead and gone now. All right. Most of the people that I was friends with because I was ostracized at such a young age, dropping out of school at 13, are all gone. They always told me, scared money never makes money, Derek. And waste not, want not. Opportunities present themselves every day. To slam the door without ever exploring the realm of possibilities is self-defeating. So take it for what it's worth. Eventually, you're going to have to jump off the fence and join us in the deep end of the pool. There's no Leviathan. You are the Leviathan. But the attorneys and the banksters would lead you to believe that they're the big fish in the pond when really they're the guppy. It's all about acquired knowledge and practical application. That's all it is. They don't care about your feelings, so expressing your feelings doesn't matter. They want the facts and the law, and that's it. Your claim needs to be short, sweet, simple, to the point. Shouldn't be more than a couple pages. If it's a couple pages, 2 paragraphs, probably sufficient in most instances. But to embellish and go on a diatribe of how you got sand in your vagina and it's irritating the fuck out of you and one day it's going to be a pearl, that's all irrelevant. Nobody cares about your feelings. Everybody's doing this FYP thing, and I say, put in there, fuck your feelings. FYF. Nobody cares about your feelings in the law. It's the law and the substantiated facts that you can prove. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Well, you can use all their documentation against them because all their documentation incriminates them. Mm-hmm. If they gave you a fucking loan, are you fucking kidding me? Impossible.
Well, I'm not scared. I have a court date on Wednesday, and I'm rather excited.
Well, if you're in a state court, you know that you need to move this to the federal court, and you need to put that judge on notice under Title 18, 1005, that he makes a ruling against you. His ass going to the Ooskow.
Wait, hold on. Let me add that because I'm taking note. Say it one more time. Title 15, 105?
No, Title 18, United States Code 105.
Okay.
They're engaging in bank fraud. They're creating a record, a book entry. They're saying that you're subject and due and owing to them some nominal amount. That's all banking. That's all bookkeeping entries and ledgering. They're financial institutions trying to extort you. That's RICO, extortion, antitrust Act violations, all kinds of different stuff. Hobbs Act violations.
Oh.
Okay, so
don't take my word for it. Go do something.
No, I'm looking it up now.
I got a question. So there's different kind of banks. So some banks are, with the OCC, and then others are Federal Reserve. But the enforcement is with the OCC on both of those, or?
And the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, yes.
Okay. So
they've been delegated the authority of oversight through the Treasury, the Secretary of Treasury. When you guys understand the War Powers Act and the Trading with the Enemy Act, when they, in the 73rd Congress, first session, volume 77, part 1, they did an amendment to the October 6th Act of 1917. That's the Trading with the Enemy Act. Okay, they granted the Office of the President of the United States broad power in time of war or national emergency, okay, to issue proclamations, rules, regulations. That's where 40 Statute at Large 411 Section 7E comes in. That's why I tell people to go read that paragraph, because at the end of it, it shows you that your birth certificate is power of attorney. And upon mere presentation to any court, registrar, or any state official, they're to immediately receive it and record it as power of attorney. And I point that out to people all the time. They just get, glazed eyes.
Yeah, I'm just talking about like for instance, like my bank. They used to be a national bank, which would have been with the OCC, but then
that's false advertising. There are no banks in the United States.
Well, either way, but I'm saying that some years back they switched to, now they're a member of the Federal Reserve. So I just want to make sure that because I'm on the OCC website and it does look like it's just for the the certain.
And what are you going to ask them for? You're going to ask them for the MoneyNet Daily Log Transaction Report 120 for the account and the date that you open it up, the Federal Reserve Form 2046, Federal Reserve Form 2049, Federal Reserve Form 2099, call report, Schedule RC balance sheet, line 13, the assets due and owing to you, RCE, deposit liabilities, line 7, credit liability of the bank, due and owing to you, which is the accounts payable, or known as the payables, due and owing to you. You want the bill of assignment from the third-party debt collector, proof of sale or proof of purchase through the bill of assignment. You want the forward flow agreement. You want the chain of assignment, transfer of assignment, the 424B prospectus, the QSIP number, the 425B prospectus. If they don't have the 424, they have the 425. You want their S-3A registration statement with the Secretary of State to negotiate securities. If they kept it on the off-balance ledger bookkeeping entries, you want the RCS and the RCB call sheet reports. Okay, you want the collateral deposit account for offset or set off purposes, and you want them to render, settle, and close the account. You want the verification of deposit certificate. Where's the verification of deposit certificate? Why don't you have it in your constructive possession? When was it created? Who has it? Why hasn't it been given to you? Real simple stuff. Doesn't need to be complicated or convoluted or anything. Just simple.
I just read this. That code you just gave me, 18 USC code is 1005, isn't it? 1005. Wait, 1005, right?
1005, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I read it and it makes definite sense. So yeah, I'm gonna hand this right on over. Like, you can't do it. No, nothing. You can't do nothing. Nothing you could do, but let the federal people handle federal issues. Boo-boo.
Right.
And this was easy.
You need to refer to the Public Law 89, and I want to make sure I don't misquote it. Hold on a second.
I wrote that down. Hold on. Public Law 8948, 1966. What is that? Title what? USC something?
Hold on. You'll get it written down right.
It was 486.
Hold on, Derek.
What's up, Brother Leon? How you been?
Oh, great. I'm just laying here listening. I got some more codes to add to y'all, though, that gonna boost y'all up.
This is a wrongful eviction they trying to do on me.
Title 12, United States Code 632. Title 12, United States Code 632. And they can't do an eviction because you're not part of HUD.
This was a tax credit property.
Yeah, but listen what he said. He said they're not part of HUD. HUD.
Right. Who's not part of HUD?
The apartment complex. The only ones that I think that could do evictions are the HUD or HUD.
But HUD was dissolved. That's the thing. HUD was already dissolved. How are they using something against you that's already been dissolved?
Not only that, they supposed to...
It was dissolved in 1983. 42 USC 1437 was repealed in 1983. So there's not even a color of law to all of this criminal activity and theft of private residential real property in the states, period.
Right. Now, check this out. Now, they supposed to make an election before they foreclose on anybody home. Also, you go to actually, this court case, which you're going to get them for actually, you're going to get them on a RICO. It's under Title 26, USC 7201. And the court case is called Dodry versus the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue. And what it tell you that if the donor instruct the donee to pay the gift tax, because you're going to have to instruct them to pay the gift tax. And once they don't, because you're going to appoint them as a fiduciary on the Form 56 to pay the gift tax. If they don't, you're going to actually fill out the actually 3949 to 211, the 13909, and let the actually goons come get them.
I already got those filled out. I already submitted that.
What was that?
You have to do it properly. And the reason why I'm telling you this, because you have to do it. You have to actually use a trust. I will use a trust.
I got a trust.
Okay, so
the trustee.
If you have a trust that's set up, you have to have it registered. Once you have it registered,
I'm in the state of Georgia. I'm in the state of Georgia. You don't have to register a trust.
Well, you want to register. You want to register, and I'm gonna tell you why you want to register. Because once they actually see that it's registered on the record the same way they have theirs registered, you have an interest up in that case. Once the actual trust take the interest up in the case as the trustee, you actually have a clause up in there that telling that the trustee cannot sell anything out the trust without actually having a contract. Once you have a contract with them, or they actually have a security interest, or they saying they have a security interest up in it, now you're going to actually transfer all the assets over to the trust to where the trustee actually have all the assets.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Also, you want to actually have a security agreement on record.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever's up in the security agreement, there is just the operating agreement. That's going to tell the actual trust what the trust actually able to do.
Right.
But that court case is called Dietry versus the Commissioner of Internal Revenue Service.
Mm-hmm.
The one I was mentioning earlier, Derek.
Leon, can you spell that out, Leon?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
It's D-O-D-R-Y.
It's D-I.
Oh, okay. D-I.
D-I-E.
Hold on. Let Leon speak on it, because he's got it in his constructive possession. So I want to get it right from the source. I want him to spell it out, so ain't nobody just guessing and throwing shit at the wall. You come back with it. The spelling is everything. Valid might have it correct down there.
D Rich, R-I-C-H versus Commissioner.
You got an affirmed spelling on that? You actually pulled up the case?
D-I-E-D-R-I-C-H.
D-I-D-C-R.
Yeah, D-I-E-D-R-I-C-H versus Commissioner. Force 57, US 191 of the year 1982. I think that is it. So a donor makes a gift of property on condition that the donee pay the resulting gift taxes, realizes taxable income to the extent the gift taxes paid by the donee exceed the donee's registered basis in the property block.
Well, thank you.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
I appreciate that. That way I can go look it up and read it for myself, because there is no substitution for reading.
Right.
That's right.
So look, Title 12, United States Code 615, Powers of Corporation. Each corporation organized as provided in Section 611 to 614 of this title shall have power under such rules and regulations as the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System may prescribe, and such limitations as the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System may prescribe to receive deposits outside the United States and to receive only such deposits when within the United States as may be incidental to or for the purpose of carrying out transactions in foreign countries or dependencies of insular possessions of the United States, and generally to exercise such powers as are incidental to the power conferred by by this act, or as may be usual in the determination of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System in connection with the transaction of the business of banking or of financial operations in the country's colonies, dependencies, or possessions in which it shall transact business. So again, this stuff is very, very powerful, and used properly and being assertive about it, it's not even a matter of leaving it up to a judicial decision. It's already been affirmed. Their business is outside the United States, not dealing with the several states, the Union of States, or the American people, period. And it's Public Law 89-485, July 1st, 1966. Where you got from? Just pointing out the Public Law 89-485, July 1st, 1966 is what you're going to point out to the state court, saying you ain't got no jurisdiction to even hear the matter because it's underneath the federal government, because federal governments are the ones that allowed for the Federal Reserve Act and for federal loans. States don't issue loans. States don't authorize loans. It's the federal government that does that.
Right. And you can also, in my case, I'm going off the fact that it's identity theft. That's federal law right there, for even stealing my...
That's the secondary issue. The primary issue is the fact the state doesn't have jurisdiction, not territorial subject matter and personam jurisdiction, to deal with evictions or foreclosures, period. End of story. This is a matter for the federal courts that have already gotten explicit instructions from the Congress on how to handle it, because they never gave a remedy for the American people to acquire anything or to do anything banking, because Federal Reserve notes are for bank-to-bank transfers and no other purposes are authorized. So what exactly and how exactly are you to transact business? You can't. That's why they have a fiduciary duty to set off, render the account, settle and close the matter. That's why all the contracts are void with the banking system.
What that public law was again, Derek?
Public Law 89-485, July 1st, 1966.
80 statutes at large, page 236. And then it was...
So again, the public law is 89-485, 89-485, July 1st, 1966, Section 3, subsection C of Section 2 of the Bank Holding Company Act of 1956, 12 U.S.C. 1811C is amended to read as follows. Bank means any institution that accepts deposits that the depositor has a legal right to withdraw on demand, but shall not include any organization operating under Sections 25 or Section 25A of the Federal Reserve Act, or any organization that does not do business in the United States. None of them do business in the United States. They're not authorized to do business domestically, period.
So they're not banks.
They're not banks. They're affiliates, they're associates, they're non-member banks, they're servicers, but they all come underneath the supervision of the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency or the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve, period.
Now, Derek, when you're putting them on notice, like the judges and stuff, you do it private, right? You don't put it on the record or anything like that.
The Comptroller of the Currency going to go ahead and get a hold of the judge, because the judge actually works on behalf of the Treasury and the Comptroller of the Currency.
And the Comptroller sometimes is the clerk, right?
No, I don't know where you get the Comptroller of the Currency being the clerk. The Comptroller of the Currency is its own office. It has agents and agency that work below it. But the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is an official office. The president, under the Trading with the Enemy Act, when it was amended, and the amended Federal Reserve Act, stated that, or the Congress stated that the office of the President of the United States will delegate authority when needed to specific branches and agencies. And one of the first things that the office of the President of the United States granted was the authority of the Secretary of Treasury to implement rules, regulations, policies as far as ledgers, bookkeeping, records, all that good stuff, and to appoint agents and agency when needed as physical agents of the Treasury to help monitor and engage in collecting all records, entries, ledgers, bookkeeping, all that good jazz.
But like I was saying, though, there's two different types of banks. Some have to report to the OCC and some report to the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, I think you were saying the non-financial. What was it? The loan servicers work through the OCC.
In any case, you can report them to both. They both work together. It's not like the Office of Comptroller of Currency doesn't follow the same rules and fucking regulations, guys. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I realize. And now you're not questioning and wondering whether or not you're doing it right because both have been put on notice. Now they carry the primary active degree of fault amongst joint tortfeasors because you fucking informed them. And if they choose to remain idle and stand by and allow you to be caused harm, damage, loss, hardship, and an injury in fact, now they become liable. Do you think that they're gonna allow you to uproot them from their $500,000 a year that they're making? No. You think they're gonna allow you to fuck up their retirement? No. They're gonna say, hey, judge, yeah, you got a case going on? Yeah. That one is a no-go. Excuse me? Yeah, close it down. Settle it, render it, close it. That's done. Remove any lien. Have the fucking alleged finge lender issue a certificate of satisfaction of mortgage. It's done. Okay. You think the judge is going to argue with the Office of the Comptroller of Currency? Fuck no, that's his job. He goes to prison for fucking that one up. So all I'm trying to do is help show people some stuff that I have recently been reading into and acquiring for knowledge from Carl Killicott, which I don't know if he had a prior job or interest in the banking or if they took interest in him and he sat down and took the painstaking time of reading this shit and comprehending it. I've never seen anybody lay it out quite so articulate before and very clear. So that's why I'm on here. That's why I'm sharing this. And again, there's no substitution for reading, and his page is open to everybody on Facebook. And I had my wife spend the last 2 days going and grabbing every post in case it's scrubbed from the internet, so I have an archive of it, and capturing all the comments that he makes when people ask questions that are intuitive that he answers, so I can assess it and look for myself and go and do the research and look into it. And thus far, everything that he said, I haven't been able to disprove. And he's citing the cases behind it, and he's citing the statutes at large, and he's citing the oversight committee's findings of facts and conclusions as to the policies and the internal regulations that they're to abide by. And thus far, I haven't seen anything that he's been incorrect about. So instead of playing Russian roulette with Title 15, 1601 through 1693, let's just go ahead and put the dagger in the aorta and call it a done day. Finito, finished. Where's the collateral deposit account that's supposed to match the credit liabilities the bank holds that are due and owing to me? Render, settle, and close this fucking account and send me back every payment I ever sent to you. It wasn't a gratuitous gift. I'm not the guarantor of this matter. All right? I'm not the guarantee. I'm not the accommodation party. It wasn't a fucking gift. And that's all I'm trying to point out. But anyway, it's getting late late in the evening, ladies and gentlemen. Leon's come back on. Brother Leon's always got gold. And I hope this is helping you guys out. 199 of us, 122,000 likes on the little ticker up above. We sure appreciate that. That helps with the algorithm. Sharing. In 2025, we want to share the live because that helps the algorithm, helps this information get out to more people, especially people that are in time of need, that need to comprehend this in order to keep a roof over their babies' heads, things of that nature. So sharing is caring. You know, give this freely because it's freely given to you. And as the community gets stronger and more numerous in numbers, we will see the change that we wish to see, not tomorrow, but today. That's why I do all this. I don't want to see a better tomorrow. I want to see a better today, not tomorrow, because tomorrow never comes. You get to 11:59 and boom, just as you thought you was getting to tomorrow, all of a sudden tomorrow became today again. You never get to see tomorrow. Tomorrow's a fucking illusion. Just like that loan was an illusion. Just like that mortgage is an illusion. It's only real if you believe it to be.
Do you have an email? Send something to you?
Yeah, it's just Derek S. Gonzalez at gmail.com. It's just my name, Derek S. Gonzalez at gmail.com.
Thank you.
Derek, I still want to reach out to you, so I'm going to hit you up sometime today. Also, y'all take this code down, 26 USC 2501, and look into it.
2501.
And also, you have to have a non-UCC with that actually, what I was telling y'all about earlier. You want to do a non-UCC and instructing that actually, whoever up in that case, you want to instruct them to pay the gift tax.
Is there a certain amount? Am I supposed to be requesting?
Well, if they use your social security number, it's $1 million. But also, you can write a promissory note and don't put miracle numbers on that promissory note. Have ChatGPT to draw up your promissory note, and you're gonna actually send that to them, and you're gonna use the non-UCC as a book entry to where you're gonna claim that security. Once they set it up, once you set the promissory note of property, a promissory note, according to the laws, is just like cash. So once they actually receive the promissory note and don't actually give it back to you, you're going to actually tell them to actually pay the gift tax. The reason why you're doing a whistleblower for them, because they're holding contraband over there. And you got proof of it.
Oh my God! I follow. Let me make sure I'm following you, because yeah, I just followed you because might need you to play that one more time, and I know how to use the ChatGPT to help.
You did on like credit cards and everything, right?
That's great. That is awesome. I like that kind of.
Do it on anything.
On anything for your house too?
Right.
Wait a minute, Mr. Leon.
Call me lucky.
Right. Okay. Great information. Thank you.
We appreciate y'all.
Yep. Been a long time coming, but with the advent of technology, everybody being able to communicate in a nanosecond, getting to the bottom of the bullshit. Like I told you guys in the beginning, I'm allergic to bullshit. I got a violent reaction to bullshit.
Me too, man.
So, all right, guys. With that being said, I appreciate y'all. Each one teach one. Go check out Carl Killicott's Facebook page. Like I said, it goes back to 2016. If you copy and paste it and put it all in your Word, it's going to be about 400 pages. And that's without the comments. And it's basically saying the same thing over and over and over again, trying to drive it home to people. And as soon as I saw his work, I saw the genius in it. And so with that said, I love you guys. Brother Lucky, I look forward to talking to you today at some point. Hit me up.
All right, I'll hit you up.
Have a beautiful night, too. Thanks.
I'm going to duck out of here before all the crazy people wake up to alarm clocks wanting to get on here and chit-chat. That's why I normally get on between midnight and 5, 6 a.m. because all the knuckleheads are sleeping.
Start waking up like at 6. And this thing will start for another 10 hours.
Yeah, I find all the intuitive people are normally up in the wee hours of the morning hitting the books. So, again, thank you for giving me the honor and the privilege of captivating your mind for a little bit this morning and showing you some things that are being divulged to me through other sources. And again, I ain't a gatekeeper. There's no substitution for reading. You know, Carl Killicott's wall. You know, if it wasn't for Phoebe, I would have never probably stumbled across it. Even though my wife was like, yeah, I was going through it. And back in the day, 2 years ago, I actually commented on this man's wall. I said, I never paid no attention to it, and I don't recollect it. She goes, there it is right there. I was like, I'll be damned. Even 2 years ago, I overlooked how important this information was. So,
thanks, Derek.
Yeah, you bet, guys. And like I said, it's a privilege and an honor to be with you guys and be in good company. I appreciate all the constructive criticism, all the love, prayers, all that good stuff. And eventually I'll put this together in a comprehensive class where we can do it on Zoom and so you can physically see what I'm talking about and go through it and break it all down. It'll take me a few more weeks of digesting this information to really put it together in a nice PowerPoint, and probably a couple 100 hours of putting it together in a PowerPoint before I'm ready to do that. But, all right, I love you guys. I'm going to let you guys be about your business. I got some things I got to take care of, so we'll talk soon, all right?
Know thyself. Stay an asshole, man. Take care.
Yeah. Working on my AAA rating every day.
Thank you.
Love you guys, too.
Peace and love.
Yeah.
All right, peace.